here, and thank you to those viewing remotely. I call to order this special meeting of the Mayor and City Council and the Mayor and City Council acting as the successor agency to the Redevelopment Agency of the City of San Bernardino at 3:05 p.m. Pastor Lee Cole from Calvary Chapel, San Bernardino, will lead tonight's invocation, and Councilmember Reynoso will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise.
Good afternoon, Mayor Tran and council members. Good to be here, and what a great opportunity to pray in the name of Jesus Christ to open this meeting. Thank you for the invitation. Let's bow in a word of prayer. Father, we're so grateful this afternoon to come together. We're thankful for your kindness and the mercy that you show us as citizens here of San Bernardino. We thank you for the leadership of these who are dedicated to making sure that we're safe and secure. We ask God for your wisdom. And we ask God that you would help us to listen to one another as decisions are made that impact the lives of so many citizens that live here. Inspire these elected officials as they discuss these important issues. And Lord, bring understanding. Bring solutions to the many problems and difficulties that we face. And Father, we thank you for the brave police and firefighters, for the first responders in our community that put their lives on the line to keep us safe. So God, again, we ask that you'd guide and direct us in this council meeting this afternoon, that you would bless each and every person here in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Lee. Thank you, Councilmember Reynoso. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Sanchez?
Here.
Councilmember Ibarra is not present. Councilmember Figueroa? Mayor Pro Tem? Here. Councilmember Reynoso?
Here.
Councilmember Calvin?
Present.
Councilmember Alexander?
Here.
Mayor Tran?
Here. Moving on to public comments, I must emphasize that public comments are only restricted for items on the agenda tonight. At this time, public comments will be heard. To address the City Council, everyone must fill out a speaker slip. A speaker slip must be completed and turned into the City Clerk. Only those speaker cards turned into the City Clerk will be allowed to address the City Council. No late cards will be accepted. Each person should state their name for the record. Madam City Clerk.
Al Palazzo, Junior Carrillo, BJ Sims, Ed Adams, Jorge Gonzalez, and Val Christensen.
Thank you, and each speaker will have 3 minutes. Please state your name.
My name is Al Palazzo. On the agenda, there's the Carousel Mall. I have many ideas for the Carousel Mall, how it can be, the site can be developed, but I can't share them in 3 minutes. And the other agenda item, the City Hall, I also can tell you what your options are. If you already decided that that's the only building that you will consider, then my idea is getting the facts, and if it's more expensive to retrofit it, cut your losses, and I can give you many ideas on why we can move on and have a new City Hall. But that's, in 3 minutes, I can't give you a lot of detail. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Please state your name.
My name is Jorge Gonzalez. I own a business called Nightskate here right in downtown off of East Street. I'm here today to talk about agenda item number 1, the cameras, but also something related to that, the P-bid. Excited about the cameras going in. Would also like to, I guess, reemphasize my support for the P-bid. I'm a little tired today. That's because I was in LA last night until 10:30, but still had to drive to my shop in San Bernardino because I'm afraid to not have someone there. We've had break-ins pretty much almost every day, it seems, in surrounding businesses, windows being shot out with BB guns, murders directly across the street, shootings right after. It's been kind of insane. You know, I signed a 5-year lease. It renews the end of this month, or the end of February. So I'm committed to being in downtown, and I want to, I guess, reemphasize my support for the P-bid because the way it's been explained to me, it feels like people like me, the business owners, will have a little more direct influence on the things that happen, maybe can make things happen a little faster. We as business owners, as property owners, know the things that are occurring in real time. Good example, we have some abandoned buildings nearby. I'm skating around all the time. I know when those things get broken into. I know when they're about to catch fire because I'm there. I'm existing in the area, but it seems like I have no recourse or any way to get them to the right people in time, right? Like Go City is great. I love the app, you know, but it falls short on certain things. So that's all I have to say. I love everything so far. I'm not here to complain, but just to highlight exactly the situation right now, you know, as a business owner, as somebody that's existing on there. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Next speaker,
Mayor,
please state your name.
Mayor Tran, just
Yes.
before we proceed, just want to remind members of the public to keep items strictly on the agenda. Their comments strictly on the agenda items today. So talking about the camera system, great, that's on the agenda. P-bid isn't on the agenda, so we're just as a courtesy request to members of the public to be very strictly keep their comments on the items on the agenda as required by the Brown Act for a special meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment, just for what it's worth. We're going to be talking about a lot of things, some things that people are going to talk about, and they're going to be making comments before we've done the presentations. So some of your answers and concerns may likely be answered in particularly the two items of the Carousel Mall and the building. I mean the City Hall. So I would just ask maybe that we all, you know, make our comments brief so that we can get to the presentations, which will probably address and answer and give you probably more questions about what we're planning to do. So just for what that's worth.
Thank you. Next, yes, please state your name.
Good afternoon. My name is Ed Adams, and I'm a lifetime resident of San Bernardino. I own several office buildings in downtown San Bernardino and around San Bernardino. I have for many years, off and on. I'm currently in escrow purchasing another office building downtown. I'm speaking on behalf agenda item 1, which is the camera monitoring system, which I understand will be potentially funded by a downtown business improvement district, which I'm here to encourage you to enact and fund, and I fully support. I think we need a lot of help downtown. The building that I'm purchasing has been broken into 4 or 5 times since I've been in escrow. It's all a homeless situation, which I know you're trying to deal with, and I appreciate that. So I just encourage you to enact and get this business district funded. I would happily participate in the board or whatever it takes. I'm willing to have my little share of taxes on the property go to fund the district, and I just wanted to encourage you to move forward on that issue when it comes up and when it's available. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please state your name.
Junior Carrillo. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm here to talk on item number 4. You all know I'm very involved in the city, and I also go to other city council meetings. And I was going to talk on this when I heard it was on the agenda. Fred Schroeder has nominated me on a couple different committees, and we don't always agree. But one thing that I've learned on being a committee member, a commissioner, is we never disrespect our council. And I come today to try to tell people you can be respectful to our council and our mayor by looking not only at the problem, but a solution. I think a lot of times, 5 years ago, before I got involved in the city, I had that frustration and anger, and I just wanted to yell at everybody. And I realized that didn't get me anywhere. So the code of ethics, to me, is respecting each and every the council, the staff, and be respectful to them. You don't have to agree with them, but you have to be respectful. I mean, I don't know all the council people. I know most of them. But you know what? I respect them all, even if I disagree. And being the code of ethics, when I go to these other council meetings in other cities, they don't have the bashing we have. And it really makes us look bad. If you people think you get up here and you bash our mayor, you bash our staff, you bash our council people, it doesn't make our city look good. It really doesn't. It's okay to be frustrated, it's okay, but come here with the idea that you're asking for solutions, that you're not gonna be up there with a baseball bat to beat them, because that's gonna get you nowhere. I can tell you from experience, the yelling and screaming got me nowhere. So the more you join hands with our council, whether you like them or not, please respect them. That's all I ask. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please state your name.
Greetings. My name is BJ Sims. Good afternoon, City Council, City staff, and Mayor. I would like to make a comment before I start, since I do have 3 minutes. I'm here to report on agenda item number 1, but I want to add some clarity that it has everything to do with the P-bid, because the P-bid states how we're supposed to spend the money as a local business owner. So today, we're not here as business owners in the city of San Bernardino to ask you guys for a handout. We respect that you guys are implementing new things downtown San Bernardino, but we're here to advocate for the business owners who have invested more than $39,000, which is the price, to start the formation process of the P-bid in the city of San Bernardino. In this room, we have a collective of business owners who have invested millions of dollars into downtown San Bernardino. Us being one, in the last week, we just spent over $25,000 to renovate two properties downtown San Bernardino, just for people to go and senselessly, like, shoot out windows and graffiti the walls. And what we're asking today is to be a part of that process. We don't want the responsibility just on you guys. We want to help. We want to make sure that every business owner in the city of San Bernardino can advocate for themselves, especially downtown San Bernardino. And the reason why this made sense to agenda item number 1 is because if you start making different decisions for business owners downtown, like putting up cameras, we can help you, let you know where the camera's supposed to go, why it makes sense to put cameras on different sides. One of the other concerns is downtown is too dark. We counted 21 broken lights downtown San Bernardino. The lights do not work. So if I'm talking about my wife and my youngest daughter being across the way at their storefront, it's dangerous because people are hiding in the crevices of downtown. So if we want to talk about agenda item number 1 and replacing cameras, we have to talk about the P-bid. We're not asking for you guys out of your own pocket to pay $39,000 to start the formation process. What we're saying is we want to use our money, the city's money, to start the formation process, because it was supposed to be started the meeting after October 4th. October 4th was the day where it was not on the agenda, and the agreement was that we will put it on the next month's agenda to get the process going. We've been waiting, we've been patient, but we have hope that today is a new day and we can start this process. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please state your name.
My name is Val Christensen. I am a business owner in San Bernardino, and the downtown active camera monitoring system is, I believe, a positive step in the right direction for our community. You know, I'm pleased that the council is making an attempt to renovate, fix, improve San Bernardino. We all know there's some serious problems here and there, and rather than sitting on the council's hands, I see some positive things happening. Specifically in the area where my business is, we talked about it a couple of times, and things have really improved and changed around my area, and I appreciate that. I know that took some effort on somebody's part, and I had the opportunity to meet with several police officers and the city manager, and it's been very positive for me to see those changes. So I think that having a council that's interested and paying attention is really a positive thing. I met with some council members from another city, and they asked me, what's San Bernardino's secret? And I don't know your secret. He thought you had a secret of some kind for improving the city. I know you're working hard on it. It's not going to be easy, and I'm grateful you're trying, because it made a difference to my property in my area. So thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Next speakers, Tansu Phillip, Daniel Friedman, Dana Fischel, Alma Rivera. I'm sorry, I thought that was the last one.
Good afternoon. Mayor and Council, my name is Glenn Ellsman. I'm a developer in the area. I like Councilmember Charrette's suggestion. If it's okay, I think the way it's structured to the public, we can only speak now, but if you're saying we can make comments or ask questions at the time of each thing, or you can't change that. So this is the only chance to speak then?
Correct, that's correct.
Okay. The only question or thought that I had this afternoon was, first, is the decision already been made to do the remodel and rebuild? It's just a discussion item at this point.
All items are just discussions for today. There's
Okay.
no
So-
action.
Right, but has a decision been made to remodel the existing city hall, or is it open to look at other alternatives?
This is a discussion.
Okay. Well, I think between the City Hall and the Carousel Mall, the $75 million potential price for the remodel of City Hall, given it being about $115,000 square feet, pardon, you know, you're close to $700 a square foot. I remodeled my house. It's a can of worms. It never costs what you think. It always costs more. It always takes more time. So I guess the question is it worth throwing out what would happen to the Carousel Mall with an investment of the magnitude being discussed in a comprehensive manner? And the thought might be, open it up for RFPs to the broader community and see what the public-private sector come up with, and then maybe there'll be better answers and ideas as to what can start to occur to transform downtown San Bernardino. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker?
Hi, everybody. My name is Tansu Philip. I'm the co-founder of Viva La Boba, and I see some of you have boba in the audience, so thank you for supporting our business. I'm happy to speak today because I, of course, want to talk about the P-bid. This falls under agenda item number 1. I think it's a little odd that someone suggested that maybe it's not relevant. I think it's extremely relevant, and I think the amount of speakers that we have here today, the pure numbers game we have today, shows that small business owners in downtown San Bernardino are very passionate about San Bernardino and very passionate about making this community safe. And where it stands right now, we don't feel very safe or like we're necessarily being supported in all the ways that we could stand to be supported. One example of that, as was mentioned before, of course, is the broken lights that are all over downtown San Bernardino. Having over 21 broken lights makes things harder for our customers, for the safety of our staff and our employees. We have been in business for 5 years, and we are so proud of that. We have chosen San Bernardino for a reason. It's because we really believe in this city, but we still have such a long road ahead of us. And I truly believe by increasing the security and the quality of life in downtown San Bernardino, everyone stands to benefit. Not just small business owners, though of course we are definitely looking for the support and the help. So I really encourage all of you to take a serious look at the P-bid and support us as in pursuing this, and we support you in turn in pursuing it. There is so much to be done. Just in the past 2 weeks, we have had 2 break-ins. All of our neighbors have also suffered at the hands of break-ins, and nothing has really been done ever since then. I sometimes feel like I'm alone in the journey. After our first break-in, I had the LA Times come in and report. I feel like I get publicity to downtown San Bernardino. I make sure people stop in San Bernardino and support our small businesses. So I just really would love to see that support reflected from City Council as well. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please state your name.
Hi, my name is David Friedman. I have a question for you first. Who's gonna respond to these cameras? You guys don't hire enough police, you don't hire enough security. When I make a phone call, it takes forever for people to get there in the first place, so you guys are jumping the gun. All right, anyways. I'm here to speak up for the small business and property owners in downtown San Bernardino. We're frustrated. We're tired of the break-ins due to lack of proper security. We're frustrated that we are forced to conduct business in the dark due to all the streetlights being stripped for the past 3 months. I have with me, and I'll give it to all of you guys if you want, but I have 17 CRM requests over the past 3 months that I've submitted, and they get closed and not handled. It's frustrating. So we're doing business in the dark. Why did the city let the contract lapse with the electrical company that takes care of that? How did that get overseen? We're tired of the absentee property owners who don't invest into their buildings and who keep their buildings vacant, which attracts further crime and property damage. I'm tired of hearing from people that the broken windows and stolen business property is just a part of doing business in San Bernardino. Like any good business, we came here to make money, but this city means more to us than that. We've all taken valuable time to show up to City Council in the middle of our workday, as have you, because we care about our city, and we want our businesses to go further than just making money. We want to positively impact the community. No individual is successful in a vacuum. There is no such thing as being self-made. We've been good partners to the city, but historically, the city has not been good partners to us. Why did no one come to us and discuss this with us, the cameras? Why did no one ask us, the business owners, what we want to see in downtown? We know better than anyone. I'm asking you to please add to the next city agenda to pay for and form the P-bid. You guys paid for a study with Civitas last year. I have a copy for each of you. Why has it taken a year since this study that you guys paid for said, yes, it would be successful in the city if the city supported it? Why haven't we formed it yet? Why? Show us that you care about small businesses in San Bernardino. Without us holding down the fort, do you think a big developer is going to be encouraged to develop the Carousel Mall? We're on the ground floor. We're the ones doing the hard work of handling all this shit until the Carousel Mall comes through and fixes things up. So form the P-bid, give us the power to keep our businesses safe and keep our streets clean. And one more thing. Theo, why do I have to call Damon Alexander to do your job? Why did you not answer my call, but you're in my bobo shop talking to an SB Sun reporter trying to get PR, whatever you're trying to do? Why does a different council member who's not my ward have to do your job? We are your constituents. You owe us, man. So I'm disappointed in you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please state your name.
Good afternoon. My name is Dana Fischel, and my husband and I own a building on 4th Street. We work there as well. I'm here alone because my husband is supervising glass work on our repair on our office because of the recent attempted breaking and entering. I'm here addressing the city, but mainly Mr. Theodore Sanchez because he is a Ward 1 representative, and downtown San Bernardino is a Ward 1. Most of the downtowns are the heart of the city. The heart of the San Bernardino in your hands resembles the heart of a patient in cardiac arrest, nothing else. You claim on your citywide profile that you are neighborhood-oriented leader. This is the first time I have seen you. You have never visited the businesses downtown. You are using frankly, very nice buzzwords when it comes to election time. You are using very nice sound bites, instead actually leading your neighborhood from the trenches to putting the actual work. So you are in the middle of your 2nd term, in the middle of your 4th term. So let's see your report card. Number 1, improving public safety.
Ma'am, we need to stick to the items on the agenda, please.
So you said that beautifying the community and cleaning up blighted properties is on your agenda. We, as a business owners, have suggested many ideas. You have been given the ideas by paying for and receiving results of the study from Civitas, a P-bid consulting company. The study was showing to you, and it showed you how the business owners could help you, Mr. Sanchez, on delivering on all your promises in your profile. I do not reside in San Bernardino. I own property here. We have our law firm here. And coming 2026, I do not want any of you coming on our door asking for contribution money for your reelection unless we see some serious delivery on P-bid.
Thank you. Next speaker, please state your name.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Romero. I'm a business owner of downtown San Bernardino called the Barbers Club. I'm in favor of agenda number 1. Yes, we do need more lights. We do need security, more safety in that area due to our recent break-in just this week. So I'm a highly believer in training new entrepreneurs in the barber industry, and I have nothing but students in my barbershop. And hurts to see my students pay for their own tools and then be stolen from them and lose their drive and still becoming a barber in the barber industry. And sometimes with these lights being so dark, I feel like I lose business as well. I lose a lot of business, and we have great reviews on Google where it makes people want to come, but as soon as they can't find a parking spot, they can't seem to find somewhere that's very lit up and something that feels welcoming, they probably take off. But I'm here today because someone burglarized my barbershop, and when I called first responders, I was told to just leave a report over the phone. That was very devastating to me. So when I got to my barbershops, all my students arrived quicker than probably the first responders did. They all helped me put this window back together, and it was sad to really be in the middle of the street waving down police cruisers just to come and help us with the investigation of whom broke into my barbershop. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, hello.
Hi.
Sorry, I had they skipped my turn.
No worries. Please state
Good
your name.
afternoon. My name's Alma Rosa Rivera. I co-own and organize a community space called Barrio Fuerza in downtown. I'm a stay-at-home mom and organizer and poet with a low income and 2 children living out of a 1-bedroom house. And I'm doing my part to make this city a better place. I've dedicated all of my free time to offering free monthly writing workshops and open mics, art shows. And I do this because I believe this city is one with an ugly reputation, and I believe the people of this city deserve to see and experience beautiful things. I can only do so much, and I feel like you guys can do so much more than me. And I hope you use your privileges to move the money around for the city in the right places. I hope you fund the formation of the Downtown SBEP bid, because downtown is truly the heart of the city, and it's where the youth is organizing and coming together. And I hope you vote for the beautification and the progress of our city and downtown. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam City Clerk?
Okay, last call for Casey Daly, Les, Jim Smith, Lydia Bomar, and Claudia Cano.
Hello, my name is Lydia Bomar, and I'm here to request that City Council take action on funding agenda item number 1 and funding the PBID as well. As a property manager and business owner in San Bernardino, I've struggled with downtown because of the lack of safety, lack of lights, lack of police, and lack of support from the city. Just this month alone, I've had over 10 different tenants get broken into, 2 shootings, all within downtown San Bernardino, within walking distance of each other. I have over 15 tenants here probably now, but I'm still optimistic about doing business in downtown San Bernardino because of the great community we have. I just wish that the city would support us as well.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, members of the council. My name is Casey Daly. I live at 144 East 3rd Street, which is downtown. So I live downtown, I own property downtown. I'm here actually today to talk about items 2 and 3, particularly related to the Carousel Mall development and City Hall. I just want to applaud the work of City Manager and his staff for what is outlined in both of those items. I think the direction that he's pointing is 100% the right way. The city taking the leadership role in redeveloping the mall, clearing the property, getting it entitled, going through all of that work that otherwise would have to be borne by a private developer is essential for us to be able to move that site to do something with. We've talked about this for 20 years. I've been involved. 20 years we've been talking about this, and you finally have an opportunity to do something, so please do it. With respect to City Hall, you've got an amazing building. Just fix it. Do whatever you need to do. It's a beautiful asset. The idea of using bonds to do it is the right approach as well, so I have nothing but positive things to say. Thank you to the city manager, staff, mayor, council. I appreciate it. Let's go.
Thank you. Next speaker, please state your name.
Les. So I'm talking about 1 and 4. Number one, I say before you guys put up those cameras, it's other things that you guys should do first. Like they said, the lights. How about we run these slum landlords out of their buildings, you know, and then what else it was? Change their environment of downtown first. And then once you change their environment downtown first, then you guys should put up the cameras. Number four, item four, you guys talk about ethics, but where are the ethics when you guys keep meeting with our last mayor? You guys shouldn't be meeting with him nor having events with that last mayor. He did some shady stuff and you guys shouldn't be associating with him. So that's, you guys need to stick to the ethics if you guys want to talk about ethics. And then the last meeting we also had, it was actually Juan used some funds that he wasn't supposed to use while he's re-elected. So that goes against the ethics as well. So, you know, you guys sit up here and have this meeting about code of ethics, but you guys are going against the ethics by misusing funds and using funds that you're not supposed to use.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Councils, and audience. My name is Claudia Cano. I'm a business owner here in San Bernardino. I'm in healthcare for the past 25 years, and I'm here to speak on agenda item number 4. I would like for the city of San Bernardino to open agenda number 4 to RFPs in collaboration with the small developers. Currently, the city and the county lack a lot of different services. Fortunately, the state of California and many of the federal government agencies have funds available for pilot programs, sustainable projects that will provide services in need, as well as generating tax revenue for the city. In addition, I would like for you to consider on agenda number 4 the construction of a BA pilot program that will not be limited to mental health services and ancillary services for the veterans. In addition, you can also add affordable student housing for the students that are attending college in the area. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker. Please state your name.
Good evening, Mayor. My name is James Smith, and the council people here, I want to commend you for calling this special meeting today. These are issues that need to be addressed. We need to review what we've done in the past. We don't necessarily need to change a lot of the policies that we've adopted prior, but let's move the city forward. The number one reason that I'm talking tonight is the image of San Bernardino. I don't know of any other city in California that has a population of $200,000 that doesn't meet at their own city hall. I think that should be a priority of the city. We need to meet at City Hall. Perception is very important, and you're doing a tremendous job in the area. There's many bright lights in San Bernardino, in Park and Rec, in the mayor's office, and many of your districts. You are doing the job, and I want to commend you very much for taking this valuable time to hear from the public. I don't want to address specifically, and I respect Councilman Charrette's request because there will be a presentation. I'll save my remarks for later on as far as the City Hall situation is concerned. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and let's move San Bernardino, continue to move it in a positive direction. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That concludes public comment.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager?
Mayor, Council, if I may. Last week, I signed an emergency agreement to get some of the lights in the downtown area in the major corridors taken care of. Lynn Merrill, the Public Works Director, is managing that. We also issued an RFP that's due on the 14th of February to complete the rest. So we are moving forward with all those lightings.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Just driving up, I noticed a whole bunch of lights that are on right now at 3 o'clock in the afternoon that I don't think have ever been on, but they look great, but let's turn them on at 5, not at 3.
I understand.
Councilwoman Calvin?
Yes, will that contract affect all of the city or is it just for the downtown? Because I know in my ward, I have multiple lights that stay out on the Highland Bridge, and I've repeatedly reported that. So what is the city, what are we looking for as far as the entire city in the lights?
Councilmember Calvin, the emergency purchase order that I did last week affects the major downtown corridors, especially the transit areas, and those lights that have been out. The RFP will be for the entire city as we move forward, and that one's due on the 14th of February.
So, but the contract is just for the downtown? Because I think you just said two things.
It
in
is
one.
the
Which
major
one is
corridor
it?
areas in the downtown area.
So, but what about the rest of the city? Because that wasn't clear for me.
There's an RFP that's already been released that's due on the 14th of February.
Okay, that would be for the entire city?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Sanchez.
I
you have a
asked for some,
question?
I asked for some patience too. A lot of this is not that bulbs are out or that lights are getting shot out. A lot of this is copper being stolen. It requires expensive repairs to rewire these street lights, and usually they're out in a week again. This is happening west of the 215 freeway along that 2nd Street corridor as well. All those lights are out. A tremendous amount of resources and time was spent getting those lights back on. In fact, concrete was poured into those crevices, and within a week, all those lights were out again. So I asked for some patience. We're trying to figure it out. It's going to be a concerted effort between police enforcement, having the resources to rebuild what's been torn out, and it's going to take some vigilance. Again, I asked for patience because this is going to take time.
Councilmember
Thank you.
Sanchez.
This isn't just a quick solution. We're not just going to put this out there and it's going to get solved.
Mayor-
Thank you. Mr. City Manager?
Mayor, Council, Councilmember Sanchez, you are correct. A lot of what's occurred there are the copper wire being ripped out of the poles, the cement infrastructure being broke in and wires pulled through there. So it's not like changing a light bulb. It's redoing the entire fixture. So it's not a cheap fix. So it's going to take us some time.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Did you have a question? No. Moving on to our discussion items. The first item.
Mayor?
Yes.
Staff wanted to make a quick announcement. So for the benefit of the community and our viewing audience this evening, these are informational items, discussion only, decisions will not be made. So the first 3 items are for the revitalization of downtown, followed by the 4th item, which is a ethics policy.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Just a question. We're televising or streaming like we normally do for any meetings? I see staff nodding yes. So there were some questions. People asked me that, and I didn't know for sure because it was a special time. And so.
All right, moving on to the first discussion item. That is downtown active camera monitoring system. Could we begin with the staff's presentation?
I believe the chief will be giving that presentation today.
The mic's not on.
I can't see that. Can we turn this one around here? Excuse me? Oh, okay. Good evening, Mayor, Council. So this afternoon, I'll be presenting to you the introduction to our proposal to implement the San Bernardino Smart Camera System. What I'll be talking about is the past history of our efforts to implement a camera system throughout the city. We'll cover the background. We'll talk about our goals with this project. I'll talk a little bit about the technology that we'll be considering, and we'll talk about some other key factors, which will include some of our efforts to include the community in this effort. I think we could all mutually agree that the city's camera system is dilapidated, it's in need of dire repair, and most of our cameras do not work. The city has approximately 95 cameras that have been installed since about 2009, and currently only 4 of those cameras work. The manufacturers that installed those cameras back in 2009 do not make the parts to repair or replace them. When those cameras were installed, there was no long-term plan to consider. There was no long-term investment, and the cameras were never considered for integration through the police department, and that was mentioned in the public comments. The cameras were installed sort of sporadically. They were installed based on funds that were available at the time, whether those were grant funds, whether those were funds made available through the general fund, or the whims of different leadership that came and went. So we never really had a systemic plan that sustained itself over the years, and this has been about 15 years worth of change. So now our goal is to implement a SMART plan, and SMART is not something that describes how intellectual this camera system is. That's actually an acronym that describes security monitoring advanced through real-time technology. And the qualities that we endeavor to implement are cameras that act as a crime deterrent, cameras that actively investigate and monitor, and critical to these factors of success are cameras that are in key locations, cameras that are key to the type, and cameras that are integrated into the police department that allow active response. Additionally, our cameras should also be placed in the right locations. And one of the things that we've endeavored to do is to make sure that we consider the locations and that we do so in conjunction with the public, in conjunction with our staff and our data analysts. This photo that you see here is a real-time information center in Chino Police Department. And one of the key things in this photo is that there's a human being monitoring those cameras, which allows that person to dispatch officers to the scene when they see activity that needs to have an officer respond. Let's talk about camera types. Throughout the city, most of the cameras that we have are pan-tilt-zoom cameras. Now, pan-tilt-zoom cameras are wonderful cameras. They allow zooming in. They allow the cameras to be tilted into different areas to better capture activity as it's occurring. However, to do that, you need an individual monitoring that camera to do so. And as I said before, we didn't have that implemented in any of our system. We do not have human beings actively monitoring any of our camera systems. So if you look at this photo here, and this is an area, I believe, on E Street and 6th. The photo on the right is a depiction of the blue arrow that you see far away zoomed in. And you can see the detail after the photo zoomed in. So the quality that you can get on a zoomed in photo is remarkable. However, you need an individual operating the camera to be able to get that quality. Other advancements, 360-degree cameras allow for a wider angle viewing that gives you much more viewing lens opportunity, better quality, higher definition, wider angle viewing. And this photo here is at a court in D Street. However, it doesn't allow you to zoom in. So the better option is to have something that effectively allows you to do both, which is to zoom in, to be able to operate the cameras in both fashions, which is this angle here. So our goal is to be able to have both, to be able to have cameras that have an individual be able to operate them, to be able to zoom, to be able to have features that allow for interoperability. Another important feature is visibility. Many of our cameras are visible to the public, but most of the public doesn't know what they are. They don't even know that they're associated with the police department. If you look at the camera on the left, it's clear that it's a camera, but there's no indication that it's a police camera. The other cameras that you see, one's from New York PD, it's clear that it's a camera associated with the police department, and that allows it to serve as a deterrent. It gives an individual a clear indication that they're being watched by the police department. This is important because it's clear, research shows that when people see that they're being monitored by the police, that they're less likely to commit a crime. This discourages criminal activity. It also gives the public a greater sense of security knowing that they're being watched in that area. Camera placement is critically important. And one of the things that we're looking at is making sure that our cameras are focused in the downtown area. As mentioned in some of the public comments, we are committed to trying to revitalize downtown. As the council may recall, one of the things that we did earlier last year is we focused on an effort to come into downtown and try to restore the downtown area during a project called Operation Restore Downtown Hope. And during that project, we brought in resources from several of our other districts, and we focused our efforts on reducing blight, reducing crime, and reducing homelessness. That project was very successful. We made several arrests. We were able to offer resources to many of the homeless population, and we saw results. However, we weren't able to sustain it without the commitment of the council in offering full-time resources, which we received. You guys approved a full-time outreach team, which we're implementing as we speak. This is a continuation of that. By having cameras that we're able to implement downtown, it will further the security that we hope to eventually spread throughout the rest of the city. This will be a model for that program. The boundaries. I'm sorry, we thought we had the slide that showed the boundaries. I put it in there today. Okay, well, I sent the slide, I'm sorry. The boundaries, if you can visualize this in your mind, for those that know San Bernardino, north to 5th Street, east to Waterman, south to Rialto, and west to the 15th freeway. If you can picture a square, that will be the quadrant that we're calling downtown. Now, that's just the square quadrant that we're identifying as the downtown area. The placement of those cameras will be in an overlapping area that allows for greater coverage. And when I say overlapping, what I mean by that is that the best camera placement is one that not only allows us to see what's happening in a specific area at the time, but also allows us to see a suspect coming, see a suspect going from a particular area where a crime occurred. So for example, let's say Via Boba had a break-in. Well, that's great, but it's also important to see which direction the car left, which direction the car may have come from in the first place, so that we can have more information that our automatic license plate reader may pick up, more information that we can give other officers in terms of the direction of travel that the suspect may have fled after the crime occurred. So overlapping camera placement is key and critical, and our plan includes all of that. We talked a little bit about department integration, and department integration is key for this program to work. If we don't have that, we will fall victim to what all of our other predecessors fell victim to, which is cameras that sit out in the city and serve no purpose other than to investigate crimes after the fact and fail our public. So what our plan is to make sure that we have cameras that report back to the police department, have human beings that monitor them full time. And by doing that, what we essentially achieve is having a force multiplier by essentially having eyes that are on the street, almost at the equivalent of having a police officer watching the very activities that are occurring in real time. So what you're seeing here is our police department's emergency operations center. So we have the infrastructure, we have the setup, but what you don't see in that photo is human beings, because we don't have the staffing to go with it. So for this program to be successful, we would need the human beings to be able to staff it. This photo shows some of the software and the data analytics that will be available to us if this is approved. This is some of the software that will allow us to actually do remarkable work with video compression after crimes occur. So in this video, what you have is a compressed time frame of an incident. This one is showing, slow it down for just a second so I can explain. So let's say we need to find a vehicle that's a yellow vehicle that was traveling on the freeway at a specific time. This software would be able to isolate only yellow cars that was traveling at that time and only show us yellow cars. Traditionally speaking, we would have to have an individual watch hours and hours of video footage to get that same amount of information. And then we're talking about human being fatigue. We're talking hours and hours of man time. And when we're talking about crime, we're talking about time, right? So now, if we're looking for someone who just committed a murder or other heinous crime, that suspect is on the loose while we're trying to gain critical information to solve this crime. This type of software and this data analytics allows us to quickly gain information because we can compress time and get information quickly. There's another one. There's another example I'd like to show. Okay, as you see, here's an example where it's only showing red cars, because if we had suspect information that it was a red car involved, and there's other examples that go on. So if we had information that a suspect was wearing a blue shirt, it would only isolate individuals wearing a blue shirt. So it's pretty remarkable, and this will allow us to really advance our investigations. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. So one of the things that came up in our public comments, and I'm really happy it did because it gives us a perfect segue, is community partnerships. And our businesses are really important to us because we can't do what we do without businesses being successful, and I say that all the time. We need our businesses to thrive for our city to thrive. So what I'm looking at here, and one of the things that's going to make this program successful, is there's software that will allow businesses and even private residents to partner with us to allow their camera systems to integrate into our real-time information center. Now, with the permission of the owners, in real time, their system can connect with us and we can view their cameras. So if an incident occurs at a business, we can in real time see what's happening. Someone in the audience had talked about they had a someone in the audience mentioned that there was a burglary or a robbery that took place. Well, if their system had integrated into ours with this technology, our person at our real-time information center would have been able to see that happening in real time, and they would have been able to dispatch an officer before that person would have had to even call 911, and we would have had an officer on the way. So this software is available, and it's actually a pretty nominal cost, and people can sign up for it. It's permission-based, so we can only monitor with their permission, but it allows us to do so in real time. And the more businesses that sign up for it, it becomes a force multiplier because more businesses throughout the city are now signed up, so that spreads it throughout the city and allows more cameras to be involved citywide. This is an example of Atlanta PD. Atlanta PD has 15,000 private businesses and residents that are signed up for their program. And by doing so, it helped their police department increase their arrests and apprehensions like threefold. So it created a massive network of users that tremendously increased their capability of solving crimes and increasing investigations. So in conclusion, what we'd like to do is get council support in furthering this project. We'd like to develop the security monitoring advanced by real-time technology. We believe that these cameras will be a crime deterrent and investigative tool. We know that it will expand our enforcement capabilities without having to add additional sworn staff. We know that it will improve our solvability and response to crime. We also believe that successful implementation will secure community partnerships and promote future expansion throughout the city. So what we need now is just your recommendation to release an RFP to install and further pursue the options to develop this system. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you,
So,
Chief Goodman.
If
Mr.
I
City
may,
Manager?
if I may also add to Chief's presentation, we've also had a discussion that once this is implemented, the chief's going to come back on an annual basis, looking at not only expanding the downtown area, but expanding throughout other areas of the city as we start moving forward, because that's part of what this is supposed to do, protect all citizens of the city. So once we release the RFP, we're going to start here, but we're going to keep going and come back every year back to the council, the mayor and the council.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Councilwoman Calvin, followed by Councilmember Reynoso, and then I don't see the speaker on my screen. It doesn't show up. So how about Councilmember Alexander first? Okay.
Thank you, Councilmember Alexander. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mayor Tran. Thank you, Chief Goodman. Appreciate you as well, sir. I just had a couple of questions.
Yeah.
How many cameras can one officer man?
Can one officer man? Well, in the RTIC, in the Real-Time Information Center, one officer or one, it may not be an officer, we would probably have civilians manning it. One officer can probably man up to 15 or 20 different cameras. Right, the one photo that I showed you, we have, I'm going to say 20 cameras, Michelle? I think there's 20 cameras in our center.
Okay. Question number 2. How many of the 95 cameras that we already have installed in the city are within the radius that you have already described?
In the downtown area?
Yeah, so
Specifically?
how many of the 95 are in that radius?
Specifically in the downtown area, I'd be guessing, but I'm going to say less than 15.
So that's how many that we would need, or would we still need additional for that
No, I'm sorry, I thought you were
radius?
asking how many of that
Okay.
95 are in the downtown area.
15?
I'm going to say around 15 to 20.
And how many do you think that we would need within that radius?
It's hard to say. We would design it based on our model and our needs. We'd want to make sure that we do a better job than was done before in making sure that we have proper overlap, proper ingress and egress coverage. I think that we would, if we do it the right way, we would probably actually need less than before, because some of the cameras that were placed were not considerate of proper coverage. And so smarter implementation sometimes will allow you to use less cameras and get better coverage.
And the 95, are they throughout the entire city?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, then. I know I see them here and there. Okay. Thank you very much, Chief. I appreciate that. Question? So will that information already be derived when we get ready to send out the RFP?
So, Mayor, Councilmember Calvin, I believe I'm wrong, I might be right, Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, but the cameras that are still out there are so outdated and the technology's outdated that we're gonna have to start from scratch.
No, I was just talking about not utilizing those cameras. I'm talking about the spacing. I'm talking about where they are placed. So that's why I was asking
Yep.
the amount of the 15 part of the 95 that we already have. Will we already use that spacing? Or someone had mentioned asking businesses to come in and getting information from the community as to where those hotspots may be? And will we have that information before we sent out the RFP is the question.
So there's two parts to that. So with businesses, the beautiful part about the technology with the businesses, it's fully integratable to whatever they already have. So with the businesses, we wouldn't have to change anything that they already have existing, and we can use what they already have and use that to tap into our real-time information center. So nothing changes with what they have. In terms of what we implement downtown, because that's where we're starting, we will evaluate where the camera placement will be, and we will determine how many we'll need to fulfill the quadrant that I explained to you, and we'll come up with a number, and we'll come up with exactly what placement they'll be, and I'll bring that when we come back with our proposal.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilmember Alexander, followed by Reynoso.
Thank you, Chief, on that report. Appreciate it. So I'm not a geek, but I love the fact that license plate readers, will that be integrated in our system? the LPRs, will that integrate in our system?
The technology allows for expansion of that. There's scalable to have that technology built in with some of the camera systems. So it just depends on what we pay for.
Right, and you're going to bring back the A+ system, right?
Of course.
Okay. Of course. And for those who don't know, the LPRs are license plate readers. That's how we find and we track those who steal or do any kind of nefarious stuff. Those are license plate readers for the public who does not know, and that helps us track criminals. And I just want to make sure that it's integrated in our system so it's scalable. Also, since our old cameras are, just question, are not upscalable, not gradable, how is this system going to be used in the future so it does not become old technology? Is it AI-based? Can we integrate AI in our system here? Is the question.
Great question. The new technology is AI-based, and one of the other good things about the new direction and the recommended direction is it's pretty old-fashioned now to buy the camera systems. That's the way it was before. Now you pretty much lease, and that's the model. We'll discuss that as we go along. But the new model is you lease, and that way you're not paying for hardware that could become obsolete. And so as things upgrade, because technology upgrades almost every 2 years, the company, whoever you go with, will usually be responsible for upgrades, whether it's an upgrade in software or whether it's maintenance to the equipment itself. So we'll explore, whoever we use, we'll explore whether they offer those types of services.
Correct. Great. And once you get the council's approval for this, mayor and council's approval for this, how long is it going to take for this to be installed in our city?
Once we get the approval, what we'll try to do is go out within 60 days. We'll try to expedite it as quick as possible. We'll come back to you as quick as we can and try to get a company that will give us a quick turnaround. Of course, I won't know that until we start talking to people, but we won't waste any time. I can assure you that.
Great. And you said that existing businesses can integrate their camera system.
Yes.
So what about if they got VHS tapes?
Well, we'll try to encourage them to get something, anything. We'll make sure that we do a very good informational campaign to encourage businesses. And one of the other things that I think the city can do, and this is what other cities have done, is incentivize new businesses and even old businesses to adopt security systems through some sort of rebate, through some sort of, whether it's business license discount or something. And I'm not trying to tell the council how to do their business, but other cities have done things similar to encourage people to get security systems.
Okay, and a lot of security systems through businesses, I know, at least on Highland, they have like ADT or Guardian or something like that. So are they able to integrate into the new system, or do you believe so? Is a sort of further question.
I don't want to start talking about brands, but what I will say is most of the information I have is pretty much guaranteed that integration is not a problem.
Okay, great. And I think, and you're going to come back to us how many personnel you're going to need and all that kind of stuff to support the system.
We'll have a full breakdown once I get the green light to pursue it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Reynoso, followed by Councilmember Ibarra.
Yeah, most of my questions were answered already. Thank you, Chief. I wanted to know about, if you do know about this, what is the power mechanism for these? Are they solar powered? Are they running through the same circuit that is operating and keeping the lights on, the street lights?
So that's a good question. There's a couple of things that I've been made aware of. There's two parts. Some have regular power sources that will have to be tapped into, whether it's, using existing electric that they tap into, like our regular cameras. And then I think there's some that are Wi-Fi based. And then there's others that have other backup battery options. So we'll explore, and it'll just be based on what type we end up going with, but there's different power options. And we won't know that until we decide which ones to go with.
Yeah. And I assume you're not comfortable, based on cities that operate like this, like New Orleans, Atlanta, any like ballpark figure of what we might be looking at?
Well, it's not out of the realm of affordability, you know. but you know, and here's the only reason I don't want to go there is because it wouldn't be fair to our process. You know, the process deserves, you know, to be fair, and you know, we have to respect the ethics of the process.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Ibarra, followed by Councilmember Figueroa.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief Goodman, thank you for your report.
Thank you.
And Mr. City Manager, thank you for bringing this up. There's several things that I want to discuss because I am pretty shocked at the number that out of 95 cameras around the city, 4 are the only ones working. I would recommend if Mr. City Manager and Chief Goodman, if you guys can get together, maybe with city attorneys, review some of the old contracts that we've had with other companies that we approved purchasing and replacing cameras throughout the city. That came before us, I want to say back in 2020, 21. So if you can look into those contracts, see what kind of warranties they had on those cameras so we can go ahead and replace them. Because I was shocked that, you know, we spent so much money on these cameras and only 4 were working.
We stopped the maintenance in 2021. We had a contract through CellPlan.
Yes.
CellPlan Wireless Global Solutions in 21. And we ended the contract then because we were paying something like, and I forget the exact number, but it was like $85,000 to $120,000
It was a lot of money, yes.
a year. And all they were doing was coming out and cleaning the lenses on the cameras. They weren't able to do any real maintenance on the cameras because they didn't make the parts anymore. So the only thing that they could do is either rip them out and offer us new ones, new cameras that would no longer work with our existing cameras because they would have to change them entirely. So it was just not cost feasible to pay that much to have lenses cleaned. So in the wisdom of whoever was sitting in the seat that I'm sitting in now, it was decided to not continue to pay that money to have lenses cleaned.
Yes.
And I think that was probably a good idea.
And I was attacked for questioning those contracts before, so thank you on that one. For the hotspots, you know, we were talking about where to place the cameras. We've had several community members come out. They're willing to cooperate and work with our police department. That could be a potential. Also, for those who do call and then they get directed to make a report online, do we have a record of those calls? Maybe that can help also pinpoint where the hotspots are of the properties that are being targeted currently, and maybe put those cameras right there as a priority. And also, yeah, the main thing is just community partnerships. I love community partnerships as a neighborhood association former president that I was.
Right.
So if you can work with our local businesses, with the city staff and our reports that we already have in hand, that would really help us with placement of these cameras. Thank you.
And we will.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilmember Figueroa, followed by Councilmember Calvin.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, thank you, Chief, for the presentation, and also thank you for the positive changes that have occurred in the police department under your leadership as well, and some of the reduction in
I have
crimes.
a great team.
Thank you, sir. In regards to this, is this system capable of identifying anything outside of video? Can it capture sound? Can it capture bright flashes, like a gunshot or something, or if it hears something, or tire screeches, anything else that it might be able to capture, or redirect itself in a location that it might have detected a sound or a loud bang?
This isn't akin to ShotSpotter, if that's what you're alluding to. ShotSpotter is a gunshot detection system. This isn't that. However, there are certain cameras that are capable of picking up sound, and we could look at integrating some of those in certain places and locations. They do have options for that. And again, that would just be about which ones we want to have sound placed on. that's an option.
Okay. And looking into the future as well with this system, could this have the potential to be used with systems like Clearview AI or any other similar system like that to help assist with generating a list of suspects?
Are you talking?
Like facial recognition?
Yeah, that's not something that we're looking at with this. There's still a lot of concerns with facial recognition in terms of its broad use legislatively, and so we're not trying to introduce that.
Not going into that. That was all. Just those were my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Calvin?
Just one more question, Chief. Will the integration come at a cost for the downtown business owners?
Actually, I don't think so. Well, let me not answer that.
Okay.
I'll let you
Okay.
know.
All right.
I do know that there's some incentives
Okay.
to encourage them to do so by at least a couple of the companies that we've looked at.
Okay.
And then I think the way it works with at least a couple of the companies is it becomes subscriber-based for a very nominal fee. It varies, but it's really
Okay.
almost
Mr. City
nothing.
Manager, that's definitely something that I would ask that the council would take a look at, or that you would bring forward to us, that there definitely would be some incentives for our downtown business owners.
Yeah, it's
to act-
very, very enticing.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that. They've already given a lot.
And Mayor, Councilmember Calvin, the funding for this, as we come forward, as the chief comes forward after we release the RFP, we're going to come back to council with the recommendations and the funding mechanisms for it, but it's pretty much going to be paid for by the city, because this is not just a downtown thing. This is going to be a citywide system. So as the chief said, there are going to be incentives in the system to allow those businesses to enroll, to do more things to it, but this is really doing business with the city of San Bernardino and trying to get reinvestment back into the city.
So we can request that then, though, right? We can put that, are we able to put that inside of the RFP?
Actually, I don't think we need to do that at this point in time, Councilmember Calvin. When we get the RFP, it'll be up to the chief and myself to kind of look at that, but I'm sure the chief's well aware of it, and he'll make sure it happens.
So when you say it's going to be a citywide system, or when you come back to us with this, are you putting in for personnel that's going to be, because it's no good without personnel. Obviously, it's no good without personnel. So we need to put in personnel. Are you going to put in for personnel for when they request for public?
So Mayor, Councilmember Alexander, if I may, the chief and I have discussed this. So it's not just the camera system. The camera system does nothing without the people behind the system. So not only are you going to have people monitoring the system, you're going to have additional officers out there responding to those watching the system. So it's going to be a package that we're going to have to bring back to the council for consideration.
And including retention, video retention, because that's always an issue, and that's always very expensive, is video
Councilmember,
retention.
please be recognized before you speak. Thank you. Councilmember Reynoso, followed by Mayor Pro Tem.
Chief, the outreach team you were talking about, is this the same four-man team that Charles McNeely brought forward? Okay, I just want to make sure. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, businesses many times, when it comes to development, they're willing to pay more to get better service going through planning, for example. Would there be an opportunity for a business to pay into the system? I mean, they'd be happily paying in to have a better camera for their particular area. Is there a way that could possibly work out? Because I understand incentives, and I understand getting people to buy in. Of course, I think the big incentive for doing business in town is that San Bernardino has this downtown system that really works. Therefore, I want to build my business or put my business in downtown. But let's say there's a business that is willing to pay more to be a part of the system because they aren't at this point.
Mayor, Councilmember Charette, so I would love to say yes right away, but the question is, more is a very broad term.
Yeah, we really don't know, but.
Correct.
Just so long, I think we're clearly engaging the business community, and I would like to be able to give them an opportunity to weigh in and say, hey, you know, I'm not included in that area, you know, that exact area, and I'm close by, and we'd like to plug in somehow, and if it costs more, we'll pay it.
We will consider it as we move forward, just don't know what that cost would be, so we'd have to look at it on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, because as I say, people are willing to pay if they're getting good service. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions from my colleagues? If seeing none, Mr. City Manager?
So, Mayor, Council, what we'll do is work with the chief. Chief will probably get an RFP ready to be released here soon, and once we get some respondents back, we'll bring back a full proposal to council's consideration.
Thank you. Great job, Chief.
Thank
you. Next, moving on to item number 2, City Hall renovation project. Could we begin with the staff's presentation?
William Lampy from the City Manager's Office will be kicking off the presentation with the background information and also financing and then what the actual renovation process will look like and what we'll be utilizing.
So if I may, Mayor, Council, I'll start off a little bit. Why are we doing this? I think over the number of years, the council and the community have been given an empty bag of happiness to do this and has not been done yet. This building is iconic. It's not iconic only to this community, but to the state and to the United States, and it still sits in historical books everywhere. This building has not been upkept. It needs to be done. It needs to be retrofitted and brought up to today's standards, but it is still a beautiful building. And in the meantime, the city has been paying lease rates in a building next door before we can be paying the bond rates to pay that building, just get it done and get it back in there, which is your building, the community's building for the city council and everything else. And that's why we're doing this moving forward. If we don't do this now, sooner or later, that building's just gonna become a gigantic doorstop. Thank you.
All right, so good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. William Lampy, Management Analyst from the City Manager's Office. And for today's presentation on the City Hall building, we're first going to start off with some historical background information on the building, some specs and stats for those who like to have that type of information, and to kind of just explain why we are here today. So why are we no longer in that building? What were the concerns? And what is our plans going forward to go back into that building? So to start off with the background, the historical timeline, the contract for that building, the contract award was done in 1969 for the design contract, and the City Hall building was actually completed in terms of construction in 1972, all for the cost of just under $5 million. Of course, that's significantly different than what you'd expect today due to inflation. For the design, the architecture firm that was in charge was Gruen and Associates, and there's a couple notable people here. First, you had Cesar Pelli, who was an Argentinian-American architect. He is world-renowned. He is known for designing some of the tallest buildings throughout the world, and he was the lead or partner in charge of the design of the building. And he was also listed as one of the 10 most influential architects in the United States. But perhaps what most people don't know is the director of architecture at Gruen, Norma Skolaric, and my apologies if I mispronounced the last name. And she is the first African-American woman to be a licensed architect in the state of California, as well as the state of New York. And her story was rather interesting, because even though she was a licensed architect and very well qualified, she was rejected by 19 different architecture firms before Gruen took her on. And while at Gruen, she worked her way up the hierarchy and became the director of architecture. So while her name might not be on the project file, she was in charge of coordinating that project, managing the staff for that project. So she was just as instrumental in the design and construction and the actual progress of that building as anyone else involved. And she also has notable projects of her own, both in collaboration with Mr. Pelli, such as the U.S. Embassy building in Tokyo or Fox Plaza in San Francisco, as well as when she went off on her own, where you have the Pacific Design Center, LAX Terminal 1, Mall of America, and so on. Now, for the building itself, depending on how you want to count the floors, because in architecture, there's a mezzanine floor, and that does not count towards the number of floors in the floor plans. So you either have 6 floors plus a mezzanine floor, which is like a balcony level, and a basement, or you can say there's 7 floors plus a basement. The building itself has over 100,000 square feet of office space. There's conflicting reports, it's 105 or 115, so I'm just going to say over 100,000. And one of the most prominent features of the building, especially for the time, was the number of glass windows. 90% of that building's surface is covered in windows. And the dimensions are there for the public. And the purpose of the building, as documented by the Library of Congress, which has a specific page just for that building. It's on the Library of Congress's website. And it was designed to engender civic pride and reflect the urban environment around it. So when you go and kind of zoom in and see the floor layout as of 2015, based off the information I gathered from staff who formerly worked in that building, you had the basement, which had the central services, the call center, the communications, the IT infrastructure. The first floor is where you had the council chambers. Then right above the council chambers and kind of like an open air mezzanine, you had the council offices. Then you have what's technically the second floor, which would be the city clerk's office, then city treasurer's office, human resources. I believe that also civil service was also on that floor when the city had that as a department. Third floor had building and safety, planning and public works, where you actually had a one-stop shop back in history. Fourth floor had finance and IT. Fifth floor had the water department, which would no longer be in the building, as they now have their own facilities. And on the top floor, you had the mayor's office, the city manager's office, and the city attorney's office. And due to the design of that building, it has won many awards and accolades by the Library of Congress, the Historic American Building Survey, the American Institute of Architects, and has been either criticized or celebrated by art critiques and architecture critiques, because some people might not care for the design of the building. It might be too modern or too urban, and others believe it reflects the future of civil service. But it was named by the American Institute of Architects as one of the 49 most outstanding city halls in the United States. So whether you like or hate the design, because design is subjective, it is an iconic building. And just as a fun fact, my car's rather primitive navigation system, that is the only building on that navigation system that has a 3D object. Everything else is just blank space and roads. But the San Bernardino City Hall is the only building that shows up on my Miata's navigation system with an actual 3D representation of the building. And then as we approach more as the building gets older, it could potentially be nominated for a National Register of Historic Places site. So that's something that we can look forward to going forwards, especially if we renovate and retrofit the building and rehab the building. Now, the reason why we're here and not over in there is due to the seismic concerns that happened over time. So when you consider the design of that building, the design contracts were awarded in 1969, which means it was built to the 1968 Universal Building Code. This was all before that San Fernando earthquake, the Silmar earthquake, which totally revamped building codes all throughout California. And that is because that earthquake produced a lot of what's called peak horizontal ground acceleration, the amount of force that building would endure. And the design and construction techniques that were okay and allowed at the time would then soon become prohibited after the Silmar earthquake. And so, unfortunately, that building was designed before those new building codes came into effect, and as a result, the design of that building is vulnerable to large earthquakes that produce a lot of horizontal ground acceleration. And the example you see here is the Olive View Hospital, which used a similar construction technique, and that hospital opened 6 weeks before the Silmar earthquake. So it was designed and constructed around the same time period. Now, the city has done multiple seismic assessments in the past for this building. One was done in 2007, another in 2016, and another one in 2018. And all of them have the same conclusion. It needs to be retrofitted. And again, it makes sense. It was designed before all of the more stringent earthquake standards that were put in place. Now, each consultant that did that seismic assessment, they also provided preliminary estimates for the costs and some conceptual examples of how it could be retrofitted. So you typically will see estimates between around 14 or 15 million. The one in 2018 for a seismic retrofit said about 7.8 million. And it's important to note that these are just preliminary estimates. They are more like guesstimates because they're not based off any design plans. And when you're in construction and if you're trying to estimate how expensive it's going to cost, you need to have the actual engineering plans to make what's called an engineering estimate. So it's important to note that the retrofitting costs that the consultants have previously estimated, those are not necessarily accurate or even in the ballpark. And that is because they are preliminary estimates. So you need actual design engineering plans to make an informed estimate. So here in this image, you'll kind of see an interior retrofit concept that was produced by IDS Group in 2016. That's probably one option the city might want to take, is that way it doesn't impact the exterior design of the building, but one thing to keep in mind is that's going to impact the amount of interior space available. Another example for a retrofit concept is an exterior retrofit. That preserves the interior space, but then you're also altering the exterior look and design of the building. So those would be things that we'd have to keep in mind going forward if we were to do a retrofit of the building. And when the city decided to vacate City Hall, that happened on November 21st of 2016, then City Manager Mark Scott recommended vacating City Hall, citing specifically those seismic concerns. And the reason why the city moved into Veneer Tower for several of its offices was because of its close proximity to the City Hall building, the parking structure, and other city facilities. It already had fiber optic connectivity infrastructure for IT, and it was also seismically safe. The IRS and the county both used the Veneer Tower, and as a result, Veneer had to produce a seismic assessment, and it demonstrated that that building was built to the more stringent and more modern building codes and would be seismically safe. So next, I'm going to hand it off to Sarah Brown and Mark Reeder from Stiefel. I hope I pronounced that correctly, and they will go over the financing aspect.
Good afternoon, members of the City Council. Thank you for inviting us here this afternoon to talk to you about the financing. I promise you it's not going to be as interesting as William's presentation on the history, but hopefully it gives you a sense of how a financing would work to bring this vision, your vision, about for renovating the City Hall. So just taking a little bit of a step back, the state of California Constitution prevents cities from entering into debt without a 2/3 vote of the electorate. So there are exceptions to that rule, and one of those exceptions includes cities entering into long-term leases, those long-term leases that are subject to annual appropriation by the City Council as part of the budget process. That concept has been leveraged by cities and counties throughout the state of California on a regular basis to provide infrastructure that is considered to have general benefit to the community. So we show here just the issuance of what we call lease revenue bonds or certificates of participation, both having this common structure of a lease financing throughout the last 11 years that are represented here. In that period of time, there's been over $21 billion of issuance of this type of debt for cities and counties, just like the city of San Bernardino. About 8.9 billion of which is new money. I bring that up in part because for a state the size of California, and this being the primary vehicle by which cities and counties issue debt for general infrastructure, it's actually not a large amount of money, but it is becoming an important, you kind of see that escalation of new issuance, because many cities, just like the city of San Bernardino, are facing a situation where infrastructure hasn't been invested in for quite some time. There's just been constraints on revenue growth, the loss of redevelopment, and so this is, we do see a trend in 2023-24, where we're starting to see cities do more and more infrastructure financing of this exact same type. If you'd mind going to the next slide, thank you. As I mentioned, this form of debt is called a lease-leaseback structure. Again, when it goes out the door for issuance, it's given the name of a lease revenue bond, and it's secured by the general fund. I'm sorry this graphic is maybe a little bit busy, but what we're trying to show is the relationship between the city and a financing authority that is a structure that's set up by the city with a housing authority. In the past, it was a redevelopment agency, and the city council acts as the governing body for the authority. So it's it is the city with the city financing authority, and a relationship of a leaseback. At the heart of that leaseback is as an asset of the city. It could be the existing city hall. It can be a park, a police station. It can be a corporate yard. These get used all over the state, and various assets have served as the subject of the lease. But essentially, the city leases an asset from the authority and pays a lease payment paid out of the general fund on an annual basis. That lease payment becomes the revenue that pays investors back over time through a usually 30-year term. It can be structured various ways. We've seen it, shorter than obviously 10 years, as long as usually 30 years, and that's a very typical structure. That's important because our goal, and if you can turn to the next page, is to make the lease payments roughly equivalent to what the city is already paying currently to lease the existing city hall facilities. So kind of the goal being to swap the lease payments that you're making right now for use and occupancy of the building next door to City Hall for what you're paying to investors to have use and occupancy of a retrofitted, renovated, seismically safe City Hall building. Thank you. Our tentative schedule is just that, tentative. How quickly can we do this is certainly dependent on how quickly design plans are prepared and discussed by you all, and a vision is put in place for City Hall, and therefore you actually have cost estimates and the ability to go out into the market and sell bonds. I mean, the exciting thing about this, this project will be an ability for the city to go out into the market, get a bond rating, and show the market the changes in the strength of the budget and the financial policies that have been put in place over the last 10 years. So we would be looking to go into the market with a roughly 75 million, whatever it ends up being, bond issue sometime in the timeframe of this summer, kind of at the earliest. Obviously, that is depending on how quickly design plans are prepared and the city council chooses to move forward. There's a team at the helm, and certainly the city council, the city staff acts as certainly call it the play caller. They get to decide how, what the play is and how fast you want to move. Stiefel is functioning as the city's bond underwriter, subject to you agreeing to move forward. There is a bond counsel, certainly the city attorney who's involved in this process, and a lot of different consultants that come together. The timing includes going to a rating agency, as I mentioned, for a bond rating, doing some presentations and outreach to investors, and again, selling the bonds sometime after the design plans are approved. And with that, I'll turn it back to William.
So for our next section, we're going to be talking about the renovation and retrofitting plans of the building. And for the next slide, Director Lynn Merrill from Public Works will be giving some information.
Thank you, William. Madam Mayor, members of the council, this is a very exciting opportunity for the city. We reached out, as William mentioned, the historical nature of the architects that were involved in this project originally 50 years ago is significant. And we're relatively fortunate because Pele, Clark and Partners, Raphael Pele, who is Cesar Pele's son, continues to be a practicing architect. And the Clark in Pele Clark is a gentleman by the name of Fred Clark, who actually worked on the building with Cesar. So it is a building that they have a great deal of familiarity. When we reached out to them, you're always kind of concerned that with the passage of time, we sent an email, and I was hopeful that we would not get an email back that says, what building is this again? And we did not. What we got back was a passion for this building. They said this building is very near and dear to Pele Clark's heart. It's an important structure. And then they on themselves reached out to Gruen & Associates, were the original architects of record on the building. And Gruen & Associates came on board. They actually do have the original plans, which means that we don't have to go in and figure out how the building was actually put together and spend time doing that. So we are looking forward to bringing the Pele Clark Gruen partnership on board to actually run the design process of the building. And we actually have the folks from Gruen are coming out tomorrow to walk the building with us to take a look at as they begin to build their proposal on this. The approach that we really are looking at is a variation on a design-build process. It's called construction manager at risk. Typically, you have a variety of ways to build a project like this or to do a project like this, and one of them is that you can actually go out and design it, and then you bring the trade contractors in to actually do the work. It's time-consuming, and unfortunately, the Public Works Department staff does not have the experience necessary to be able to do this kind of a project. It's probably a once-in-a-lifetime activity. And so our approach is going to be bringing the Pele Clark Gruen team in to do the design work. We are talking to a firm to act as the owner's representative, and so that person will actually act as our agent or a company will act as our agent to ensure that the building is built to code, is built to plan, is that excessive costs or anything like that are not allowed in the process. And then the reason that it's called construction manager at risk, that's one way. What that leads to is oftentimes when you do that kind of approach, you get a low cost and then you get extensive change orders, because on a building like this, it's very difficult to know everything that we might run into once we start opening the building up. And so the construction manager at risk approach allows us to get a maximum cost. That's why it's called construction manager at risk, is that the construction manager takes the risk and they establish a not to exceed price. And with very minimum opportunities, you know what the cost is going to be. So you're not kind of subject to the change order. And it gives you, in that process, a guaranteed maximum price. So it tells us what it's going to cost up front. And so that, in conversations that we've had with various members of the staff here and the team members, as well as the city attorney, we are going to move forward with that kind of an approach, which we think is going to be the best, most cost-effective. It's exciting because you, in our essence, looking at bringing a building back, and I apologize for my passion. I spent 10 years in that building prior. The building is very important. It's very significant to the community, and it allows us to really bring this building back, but it's also a clean slate. It allows us to bring a building back and put in there the technology and the designs and the infrastructure that will allow that building to serve this community for another 50 years. And so it's a very exciting time. With that, I'll turn it back over to William.
So when you start contemplating how the layout could be revised internally, you have to remember a couple things have changed since the building was last inhabited by city personnel. The water department has their own facilities. They've moved out, and they used to have that entire 5th floor with a fully renovated counter, which would be potentially perfect for a one-stop shop. And because the water department would no longer be in the building, that also kind of frees up an entire floor that the city and community could use kind of as what we'd call a flex space. And that gives you some, unique opportunities to do private-public partnerships, maybe a entrepreneurial resource center type of idea where you have, like, instead of an entrepreneurial resource center, what about a resource and training center for employees, local public sector employees, businesses, for advancing their education. You could also have a satellite campus or extension center there from a local university, or you can use it as leasable space. And rather than having that at that 5th floor where the water department used to be, you would put that on the 2nd floor. That's the floor that directly connects with a bridge to the top of the parking structure. And that allow the public to more easily utilize that space without interfering with city operations, using the elevators and so on and so forth. So if you kind of step back from the building and kind of see how that would look. So this is kind of the layout, and your 1st floor and that mezzanine floor would still be your council chambers and your council offices, but that 2nd floor or 3rd, depending how you want to count it, would be that flex space. And then city operations would remain on floors 3 through 6, the top 4 floors. And again, building and safety, planning, land development, they could have a one-stop shop utilizing that renovated counter on the 5th floor that used to be the water department. And with that, that concludes my presentation.
Council members, any questions? Okay, Councilmember Calvin, followed by Councilmember Ibarra, followed by Councilmember Reynoso.
Thank you, William. I always love when you present. You're always so efficient and so clearly able to understand. I did have a question, though. The woman that spoke at the dais, who was she again, and what was her name?
So that is Sarah. She's from Stiefel Nicholas. Along with her is Mark Reeder from Stiefel Nicholas. They are the bond underwriters.
So you've already hired them?
We've already got a letter of intent with them, and all the project personnel put on this will go ahead and be reimbursed through bond proceeds. So we need to start moving forward ahead, and they're one of the top companies in the United States, yes.
So if you don't mind my asking, what was that cost?
We are still working on that. It's not a final cost yet. We will know as soon as we know what the bond issuance is and what the market rates are and those type of things. So we don't have a final cost yet, but that'll be rolled into the bond proceeds.
So we just opened up a contract, but we don't have any idea of the number of what that's going to be?
When you do bond proceeds, this is how that process works nationwide.
Okay, and so they've already been identified, though?
Yes, they have.
So we didn't need to go out for an RFP for that?
No, we do not.
And why was that?
We do not, because they're one of the top people in the marketplace. They're the top ones in California. It is relationship-based. It is people that we trust, that we know, that we work with.
They've worked with us before?
They have worked throughout California. They've worked with me in several different states as well, and other individuals.
Okay, all right. So I did have a couple of questions that I wanted to ask. So when I first came onto the dais, I had a couple of questions, conversations, with the then city manager, Robert Field, and I had asked that we contact our elected officials on the federal and the state level to see if there were funding that, due to the fact that this building is a historical monument, that they would be able to co-sign or, go out there in front for San Bernardino to look for some funding to be able to assist us with this retrofitting. Have we followed up on that? Has anyone seen that information come across?
Mayor, Councilmember Calvin, yes, I have. I actually met with 2 individuals last week who I let them know that if they could identify the funding from the state that's available on the historical level for reimbursement for the bonds or any other proceeds for this project, to come back with the city to a proposal for that.
And who was that?
I'm not going to put names up on the dais, ma'am.
So what about the federal level?
We have not at the federal level whatsoever.
We haven't reached out to Congressman Aguilar?
At the federal level, right now, they're not looking at adding additional items within the budget. We will be meeting with Congressman Aguilar and others, but right now, this is not one of those items.
Why is that? It's not an item that the federal level would be able to advocate for us for that funding, or it's a decision that the city's making?
Councilmember Calvin, the federal level, we can ask for it. However, this will not take priority above other projects within the state of California and the United States. However, we will bring this up and put it on a list.
Okay, thank you very much, because I know that every single year they ask us for those type of requests, and then we're able to say, here's a project that we have, right, that we would ask for some assistance and that they would lobby for us and see what they can bring back to San Bernardino. And our lobbyists as well, has this project been given to them?
Mayor, Councilmember Calvin, we have mentioned it to our lobbyists. In addition, the money that has come forth to the city has been about $1 million or less on the congressional level. Items of this magnitude have not been yet given to the city of San Bernardino.
Okay, so let's see, the lease for the lease back, is that what it was 2 leases, right, that she mentioned? So that fund, that will equate, if I understand correctly, that will equate to what we are paying currently for the leasing of the Veneer Tower?
Mayor, Councilmember Calvin, yes. What we're kind of looking at, and I put on pause additional growth space in the Veneer building. We were looking at taking additional space on the 9th floor and 7th floor at a cost to TI improvements of $1 million alone. In addition to that, additional lease items and additional extension of that lease. Our current lease ends here in 2 years with the Veneer Tower, so we are looking at using those lease payments and stuff back through these bond payments to pay for the bonds.
Just one more question. With the building being a historical monument, are we able to expand out? Are you able to do those type of renovations on the outside of the building, or is it just, I know there's some restrictions.
Councilmember Calvin, we would not recommend it whatsoever at all. I think what we're looking at is trying to retrofit the building as it stands now, because there's more than enough room within the building to expand in future use. If we look at outside of the building, we're looking at a different capacity underneath the structure itself, and it would probably cost significantly more.
And so the expansion, the assessment is, we're going to go back to Gruden, is that my understanding? And they're going to be the ones that come in and do that inspection? Or, because I know I also, when I first came on the dais, some folks that worked in the building and building it had actually suggested to me that we have the state level come out and do an assessment of the building for us as well.
Councilmember Calvin, the state will not do the assessment of the building because they're not going to take the risk. So we have to hire our own engineers, our own architects to look at the substructure, to look at the flexibility of building for the earthquake mitigation moving forward. And also, it is we that will be taking the risk. The state will not take the risk on any city's behalf.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Reynoso, followed by Councilmember Ibarra, followed by Reynoso. Oh, so you don't have it. Followed by Alexander.
Okay, thank you for the report. It's much weighted on. The one thing that I've been asking for is to have a cost analysis of how much this will cost. You've given us a slight breakdown, but we need actual figures, if that's possible, because we were looking into possibly doing the private-public partnership in the past, or retrofitting it or selling it off to an investor. I'm glad personally that we are going to go towards the retrofitting and renovating the building, because it is a beautiful building. And after every earthquake, I look at it, it's like, you're still there. That means we want to go back in there. So I want to thank staff for reaching out actually to the original architect, the architectural group, because who better to help us, upgrade that building than them themselves. But yeah, I remember, when I first came on board, I did reach out to some of our state legislators about possibly helping us fund for City Hall. And they said that was something that they didn't have funding for at that moment. I don't know if they do now, but that would be great. Federal government, I know we have a rep here for Congressman Aguilar in the audience. Hopefully he saw the presentation, and he'll bring it back to Mr. Aguilar and have him discuss it with our city manager. But yeah, if we can get like a price on anybody you're bringing on board to work on this project in advance, that'd be greatly appreciated. I think we give you, I think it's 100,000 right now currently.
So Mayor, Councilmember Ibarra, so as I said, all these costs right now, these individuals are working for the city and will only get reimbursed if we issue the bonds. So once the bonds are issued, their costs will be incorporated within the bonds. So let me also add to that. We are looking at potentially a $75 million issuance. However, having said that, I don't anticipate, I know Public Works and I are having a discussion, but there most likely will be $5, $10, $15 million left over in those bond proceeds. And if that occurs, we will come back to council on how to utilize those proceeds throughout the city on other structures or other items. In addition, the reason why we're doing it this way, it's speed. It's to get this thing done. Our lease in the city building is up in 2 years. We don't want to sign another lease. We're just throwing money out the window. On top of that, we have 18 months of interest-only payments on the bonds. After that, we got a 3-year arbitrage where we have to expend all bonds. Otherwise, we pay the interest difference payment penalty for not using those bond proceeds. So there are limitations in time. So the longer we take, it's not going to work.
And the more expensive it gets.
It does. And so we just got to get it done now.
So yeah, thank you for providing all the information you provided. This is information that I've been asking for from previous administrators, and they were not providing it to us before, so thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilmember Alexander?
Thank you. Thank you for your report, William. I appreciate it. I just have one quick question. You said, or maybe the city manager said, that we will be hiring someone to act on our behalf, us being the city? Yeah, thank you. Owner representative? Is that correct?
Mayor, Councilmember Alexander, there'll be a few people. So we have an attorney for bond counsel from BB&K, plus our regular city attorney, but we have a bond counsel, and I just forgot her name. Kim Barnes.
Okay.
So she'll be our bond counsel. We also have a financial advisor working on our side doing the financials that worked on the original bankruptcy from the city. So these are important aspects to this, so they know our financial condition, they know what we're doing and what we need to accomplish to get this thing done.
Well, I don't have any issue with that. My issue is that if we hire all these people, how are we training up our people? That's my only issue. It's always, we hire out, we get agencies. My issue is, are we going to bring anybody along that works in the city so they can gain the expertise so they can have that type of issue? So we're not going to have anybody that parallel these individuals That's my only question.
Councilmember Alexander,
You see where I'm going with that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
The bond issuance of this, now myself, in my career, I've probably done somewhere around $4 billion worth of issuances over the years. But it's such specialized in bond counsel, I don't even play with it, okay? So it is, most attorneys are generalist attorneys. They don't play with it. You have to be specialized bond counsel. As far as a financial advisor, you know, I can do the work, but right now I'm working on other stuff. Our finance department's working on the budget. We need to have somebody that can concentrate solely on this issuances because we're moving forward.
I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I'd love to if we can.
The training of our people. I'm always about training of our people, so we don't come back with the line that we always hear, well, we're not experienced enough, or we're not this enough. Well, this is an opportunity for us to train our people so they are experienced enough. And that's all.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilmember. Mayor Pro Tem, followed by Councilmember Calvin.
I just have one quick question, and that is about the schedule, the time schedule, the time frame. It's very aggressive. And based on other projects that we've seen go through here and things I've heard from developers and issues that they've had in planning, with all due respect to our department, we can make an 18-month deadline of getting this thing done and us moved in.
You have my word. I'll make it happen.
Okay.
I don't.
No,
I've
that's,
done a number of these before.
I don't mean to laugh.
So
I've heard that a lot
I will
over the
say
years.
this.
And again, I say that with all due respect, considering, staffing and other issues and bankruptcies and other issues that we've had. But this is exciting. I know Lynn he's thrilled to death about it, and he and I had a really nice talk about it yesterday. And I am too. I think the community will be, and they want to see it. But it is an aggressive time frame, and I don't want to be coming back and saying, oh, well, we thought 18 months or 24, but it's really 36, and 36 might go into 48, because that's been kind of our MO for many years. And my colleagues get mad at me or make fun of me for using this all due respect term, but I mean that respectfully to past and current staffers and people that have worked diligently and hard on a lot of issues. Their hands have been tied in many cases, but I'm feeling really excited about what we're doing tonight, what these two projects, the Carousel Mall and the City Hall are going to do. It's going to tell the people that we're back in business and that we're a grown-up city and really serious about bringing this city back from where it is and where it's been to what it once was and what we know it can be. So I just want to make that comment about what's the saying? Promise less and over. How does that go? I don't know. You know what I mean. Everyone's heard it.
Under promise, over deliver.
Yeah, over deliver and under promise or something like that. So I've heard it, and I don't want to. I'm on board to help and make this happen.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Calvin?
Yes, I agree. I'm very excited about us getting back into City Hall, but I was looking through some notes on the last time we discussed this, and I was wondering, did we give direction to go out and seek this relationship and enter into an agreement with them for this process, for bonding? I don't remember giving that direction to City Manager's office.
Mayor, Councilmember Calvin, no, you did not, and no, you do not have to. That's why we're bringing it to you at this point in time. We'll bring back the agreements to council in the future, including the reimbursement agreements to include these costs going into the bonds.
Why is it that we wouldn't have had to give you direction to go seek this relationship?
They are letters of intent. They are not, the final agreements, and the bond issuance have to come to council for agreement.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Thank you. City Manager, thank you so much. This is great, and staff, all of your hard work. This is very, very exciting. It creates certainty for us, and we're creating real progress and delivering results to our community. So it's very, very exciting. Any further questions from my colleagues? If not, I'm going to move on to item number 3, which is Carousel Mall Redevelopment Project. Could we begin with the staff's presentation?
William Lampy will be presenting this item, kicking it off as well.
All right, well, good afternoon or maybe evening by now, Mayor and City Council. Again, William Lampy, Management Analyst for the City Manager's Office. And just like with the City Hall building, we're going to do pretty much the same thing with the Carousel Mall project. A little bit of background history, specs, stats, what happened, why we're here today, and what we plan on doing going forwards. So, a little bit of the background history for that site. So, the project planning for the Carousel Mall project, then Central City project, started back in 1963, and eventually the design awards for the mall itself was approved or awarded in 1967. The mall was eventually completed in 1971 and opened in 1972, all to the tune of $2.7 million in construction costs. But what's interesting that most people probably don't realize is that the Central City project was actually part of a larger project that also included City Hall. So Carousel Mall, City Hall, the whole Civic Center, that 5-level parking structure, the convention center that's kind of in the underground section right underneath City Hall, that was all part of the same massive redevelopment project, and that was a joint project, a joint venture, a $100 million redevelopment project between the Department of Housing and Urban Development, the federal government, HUD, and the city's redevelopment agency. And so the total project scope at the time was about 94 acres, and that covered the old central business district in downtown. And if you kind of want to see what downtown used to look like from a map perspective, no Carousel Mall, back to the old classic traditional grid layout of the city streets, and rather than Interstate 215, it was called Interstate 15 because that's how Caltrans originally had it before it was rerouted. Now, for the design of the Carousel Mall, same architecture firm, Gruen and Associates, and Dan Barrington. My apologies if I mispronounced it. He was the partner in charge of the project. The total site area for the mall itself, for the mall site, not including the City Hall Plaza area, was about 44.5 acres, and that included the Harris Building and all the other retail stores as well. The mall opened to approximately 76 satellite stores and 3 department stores, and then later it would expand over time to about 100 stores, utilizing more interior space and subdividing various retail spaces. Now, the important thing about the Carousel Mall was the purpose for the purpose for the project. Why did the city want to go through this massive redevelopment? And there's 3 main reasons. 1, increase sales tax revenue for the city. Get more of that sales tax dollars for city funds. 2 was to increase property taxes. And 3 was to spark redevelopment or development throughout the downtown area. Because if you have a thriving economic ecosystem in your downtown area, you're going to attract more developers from building. And that's exactly what happened initially. You had more buildings going up, you had more people coming in to open up businesses, start construction, and so on. And the actual stats, the first year that the Carousel Mall, then Central City Mall, opened, they had about $50 million in retail sales for the first year, which generated over 2,000 jobs and about $10 million in annual payroll. So it was an economic boost initially. It also had a positive impact on the surrounding property values for the city and the downtown area. So before the mall opened, property values in the area were actually on the decline, and in around 1965, the assessor's office had them at around $8.4 million for that region. And then over the next couple decades, it skyrocketed to about $18 million. So it also was successful in raising property values. And then finally, it triggered more development in the downtown area. You had more banking centers opening up and other businesses. Now, as we all know, it simply was not sustainable, and there was like a series of events that all contributes to the decline of the Carousel Mall. So 1, you had the loss of jobs, the closure of Norton Air Force Base, the closure of the Santa Fe rail yards, the closure of Kaiser Steel, and that's where you lost all those high-paying or well-paying union jobs, to the tune of about 20,000 union jobs. And that means less people spending money at the Carousel Mall. As I mentioned earlier, Interstate 15 was realigned. It no longer went through downtown San Bernardino. It was realigned to go through Ontario. And for a while, you had Interstate 15 East and Interstate 15 West, where the east portion was going through San Bernardino, and then eventually that became basically a secondary freeway. And that's why there was less volume of traffic going through downtown. So before, you had all that traffic coming from the high desert and elsewhere, traveling through the city, and where do they need to stop to get food, to get gas, for lodging, to go shopping? Downtown San Bernardino. But once Caltrans realigned the freeway to go through Ontario as the main route, that diverted all that traffic and all those customers. Then you also had its close proximity to the Inland Center Mall, which opened a few years previously. And then when you had the loss of popularity of enclosed malls, it simply was not sustainable to have two malls in such close proximity. Eventually, the Carousel Mall became economically unsustainable. It was costing more in maintenance than it was producing in revenue, and that was simply just not sustainable for the city. You had the loss of major department stores. When Harris was bought out by Gottschalk's, they moved their location to the Inland Center Mall, so there goes one major anchor. Then you had the closure of Montgomery Ward, and then J.C. Penney, and then pretty soon you went from over 100 tenants at its height to 18. And you can't sustain a mall of that size with revenues from 18 tenants. So it officially closed on August 22nd of 2017. And that's where we are today. The closure of the mall, and then the demolition and current status, which I'll hand over to Director Lynn Merrill from Public Works.
On April 24th, the mayor and council enjoyed a breakout of the existing mall. Typically, we do groundbreakings. In this case, we were doing a breaking of the beginning of the demolition on the site. One of the first stages that went through, as you can see here, these are aerial photos that were taken during the demolition. You see the absence now of the Montgomery Ward's building in this picture. You still have the parking structure and some of the other buildings there. Up on the top end of the building, you can still see the Montgomery Ward's Auto Center and the J.C. Penney Auto Center. Next one. End of October, the building is pretty well down. You have the remaining east side of the building. Multi-layers in that mall. There was actually at one point a theater down in the third level there. All is coming down at the end of October. And then finally, next one. Finally, what the site looks like this month, we are coming to the end of the project, and the site is cleared. You see the process materials on this end that are being laid up against some of the remaining foundational areas, and that's being done to create kind of a safety barrier for people so that they don't, people that might trespass onto the site, that they will not have a issue of falling a 20 or 30 foot fall area there. Go ahead. And the current status is that we are continuing to finish up the demolition. We expect the process on the main building is pretty well complete by February. We do have on the Montgomery Ward's Auto Center, unfortunately, one of the things that we are dealing with up there is that there are underground storage tanks that were present at both the J.C. Penney and the Montgomery Ward's Auto Center. The J.C. Penney facility actually was cleared by the State Water Board as a no further action, and so we have received a proposal to go ahead and proceed with the demolition of that, and we expect that that will occur in the next 30 days. On the Montgomery Ward side, we are beginning the process of restarting the environmental monitoring of that site with the underground storage tanks in order to move that forward to a no further action with the water board as well. Once that is complete, and unfortunately we do not have a timeline because it will really depend on what kind of contamination is still in the ground, whether or not there's still hydrocarbon vapors that have to be removed and anything else that we have to do remediate. So it's a little hard for us to at this point in time to be able to say when that building will be done. Once we get the environmental contractors back on board, then we should be able to get better information for you. We did do a phase 1 on the entire site. A phase 1 environmental consists of basically a historic records review of what was there. The site had many, in its original configuration, had dry cleaners, plating operations, auto centers, a rail, the Pacific Electric Rail Depot was there, as well as a rail yard, and those have been all identified. Now we are moving into a phase 2 where we actually do some ground boring, and we do some looking at what the soils actually are and whether there actually is contamination from those activities. And we expect that will occur next week for that award. And that takes care of our presentation, my side. Or do you want me to continue? Okay.
All right, so we also have a slide here just as some basic information on the SLA process. This would be applicable for any of the sites that would have to go through that process, and there are also exemptions to the SLA process, and that's something that we are going to be very mindful of going forwards. But essentially, you have to declare land surplus if it's something that requires the SLA process. You have an issued notice of availability, which is about 60 days that you have that required time period, and then you have to negotiate in good faith for anyone who responds, and that is a 90-day negotiation period. Once you get past that, you send your proposal to HCD for review. They will probably go back and forth with you with any potential findings or any adjustments that needs to be done, and then eventually, once completed, you can redevelop and sell off the land. And that brings us to redevelopment. So first, to kind of frame this discussion, we're going to look at every city in the Inland Empire that is currently investing in their downtown, either revitalizing it, redeveloping it, or otherwise. So here's a map of the Inland Empire greater region, and every city in blue actually has either completed a redevelopment project on a large scale or a scale that's appropriate for that city. They have approved a redevelopment or revitalization project and are actively implementing it, or they are having just ongoing development from previous redevelopment efforts. So these are cities that have invested in their downtown and are being successful as a result. And specifically downtown. I'm not talking about, like, something that's close to the freeway that's off of downtown. These are cities that are actually investing in their downtown regions. So some examples, and this can kind of give you an idea of what is also possible or some of the potential for our city, because these are actual before and after pictures. You can go on Google Maps and do Street View and actually see the history. So Palm Springs, you have a city of about 45,000 people. In the summer, at least. In the winter, it's probably double or triple that because it is a resort destination. So it's a small city with big development. And so they've knocked down buildings, and they've built hotels, they've built retail, they've built restaurants, all to increase that pedestrian traffic. So you have it with the new hotel there. I believe that's the Rowan Hotel. And then when you just go down the main street in Palm Springs, you just see massive redevelopment that's ongoing. They revitalized, they redeveloped their downtown years ago, and they're still seeing more development because it attracts development. You can go to a city as small as Yucaipa. Technically, it's a larger city than Palm Springs officially, but it's about 55,000 people, but it's a much smaller community in terms of its budget, its size, and its destination. And they revitalized their downtown. This was back in, I believe, 2008. They did a massive public works project of redoing the streets. They replaced the intersections with roundabouts, as I believe Thomas would say they're properly called, rather than traffic circles. They did street beautification. They've built senior housing on the main boulevard in the heart of their downtown, which they call Uptown because elevation-wise it is higher up in the city than the rest. And then another important aspect, they actually invested their own civic buildings in their downtown or uptown area. They built their performing arts theater in uptown. And that way, when you have people going to see a performance, a show, before that show, they're spending their money in local businesses in downtown. And when the show ends, they're spending their money at local businesses in downtown. And sure enough, just down the block is a brewery and a couple wine tasting areas. So it's a thriving downtown region these days compared to how it used to be back when I moved to Yucaipa. We all know Redlands is also actively investing in their downtown. One of their approaches is they're investing on building up their infrastructure. You have, in this picture, this big vacant lot in front of the former Kokorian movie theater, now Lux Cinema, is a massive parking structure for the Aero commuter line railway. And this is all establishing a destination spot where people can come in through mass transit and disperse through their greater downtown area, which is expanding. They have the Packing House District as a more recent development where they used all that vacant space to build up a distillery, a brewery, a Sprouts, and so on. And then Riverside, which has a already thriving downtown, is attracting more development. And one of the big things that Riverside has going for it now, in terms of development, is bringing more housing in downtown. And when you bring more housing in downtown, you're helping to create a sustainable downtown economic ecosystem. Because it's one thing to work in Riverside and spend your money maybe during the day on your lunch break or for dinner before you go home, but if you live in the downtown area, you're attached to that downtown area, that downtown region, and you're going to start spending your money there. You're creating that sustainable ecosystem for your downtown retail businesses. So that brings us to the Carousel Mall site. So here's the satellite image of when the mall building was there. The satellite, Google hasn't updated their satellite images to show the current demolition progress. And then the concept going forward is to divide up the land into 5 quadrants. And I understand quadrants typically means 4, and 5 is one more than that, but just for layman's terms, we're just going to use quadrants. It's easier than quintrants or something like that. But everything in blue that you see on the map is going to be conceptually proposed as your mixed-use, multifamily residential zones. Everything in that orangish color, which are the quadrants 3 and 5, those are going to be your retail space, commercial space. Quadrant 5 would have a hotel and larger retail pads, most likely. It's all very conceptual at this point, but this is some of the vision that's going forwards. And then quadrant number 4 would be that civic space, like your civic amphitheater or a performing arts center. So to kind of give you an idea, and these are just renderings that you would see from other developments. So you'd have your mixed-use multifamily here in the first quadrant, and you'd want to develop these things probably in stages. You don't want to bite off more than you can chew. And every city that I just highlighted previously, they didn't redevelop their entire downtown in one shot. Yucaipa, small city, started with the streets, then landscape maintenance, storefronts, and then about 8 years later, what do you call it? Performing Arts Center, thank you, sorry. Riverside, active ongoing development. It's not all done at one time. Palm Springs, active ongoing development. Same thing with Redlands. It's not all done in one shot. So quadrants 1 and 2 would be your mixed-use multifamily with your retail on the bottom, multifamily residence on top. Between quadrants 1 and 3, you'd have a pedestrian street where you would have all that retail space, and you also have the parking structure that would help feed into that retail area. Quadrant 4, like I said, would be your civic park and facilities, your performing arts center, your amphitheater, and then quadrant 5 would be your hotel and retail pads. And so that is kind of the plan or the kind of the conceptual vision we have going forwards for the redevelopment of the Carousel Mall site, doing it in segments or in quadrants. And with that, are there any questions?
Okay, Councilmember Reynoso.
Great job, Will. Thank you. Don't want to get ahead of us. We had some issues with the Surplus Land Act before. I wanted to ask, though, or put a bigger thing out for city manager and staff, that with this people would love to see ongoing construction, myself included. When this begins to happen, because eventually we believe that we have the fortitude to get this done, or begin to start it, what happens to the Inland Center Mall? And that's not a question I expect you to answer right now, but it's something that I want to keep in your mind. Because, let's be real, it probably will die. And we don't need more vacant buildings.
Yeah, Mayor, Councilmember Reynoso, the issue has always been is that malls have a general life, the internal malls that we all grew up with, have a general life of 20, 25 years. A strip mall has a life of about 15 to 20. So these malls that have been out there, they always have to reinvigorate themselves, reinvent themselves. So long-term, they're probably gonna have to reinvent themselves again. That's what a lot of these centers are having to do.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Alexander?
Oh, thank you. Oh, great job. Question, who's the master developer on this?
Mayor, Councilmember Alexander, we are. The city.
Yeah, when did we decide that?
This is just conceptual, and I would always recommend that the city control the development process. Issuing an RFP, which is done previously for the entire site, is a pie-in-the-sky approach where you are giving somebody 7 to 10 years to develop their own vision, not the city council or the community's vision, and they're going to do it on their time frame, and when the market approaches their bottom line number for opportunity costs, not yours. So moving forward, we're going to recommend that the city be in charge of the development in quadrants as we move forward. Now, that doesn't mean the city's going to be out there building the stuff. We'll probably be issuing RFPs or working with individual companies in order to develop those areas, but we would be the master developer, so the vision of the council and the community is held forth.
Okay, and whose plan is this? Whose vision is this? Because I remember the community had input on this. The community had lots of input, because I went to in the various wards, we all had input, and this was not the vision.
Councilmember Alexander, you are absolutely correct. And the reason why this came forth for a number of reasons. We are working with a piece of land that we have to deal with the SLA process. You have the federal, you guys already designated this as a federal opportunity zone site. You guys are not taking advantage of a TOD site, transit-oriented development site, which additional revenues come from the state for that. And pushing F Street through and all this makes a huge difference. So there's a lot of components here that have not been taken into consideration ever before.
Right, but then again, like I said, this is not the community's vision. This is willfully short of the number of units that we are required. We are 8,123 to be exact. That's what we had. That's what we need to do. And then and now this doesn't even come close to us to completing what we are required to do. It's not even close. And in the previous plans of other developers, they were talking about 1,700 units doing multi-use, right? Just what you were saying, boutique restaurants, boutique shopping areas, and then units at the top. But except it was for the entire 43 acres.
And my comment would be, Councilmember Alexander, if that was capable and the economics would have worked, they would have done it by now.
Well, they had the
opportunity
problems.
and they did not do it.
Right, but we had the problems, as you well know. We had the SLA problem, we had some other problems, which we still have.
Absolutely.
Which we still
and yes
have.
and no, because there are ways to work with the SLA process, through the P3 process, through other processes that exist that will manage the economics and bring not only the multifamily, but also bring the component necessary to drive retail to that site. And that is what's going to make sure for the redevelopment process as a whole.
So how many units, living units, are we talking about in your proposal?
Councilmember Alexander, we have not put numbers out there because we're not going to. This is based upon an approach. As we move forward, we will work with people if we issue the RFP and bring forward and ask them what we can fit on certain sites. But keep this in mind. On a transit-oriented development, it also reduces the parking structure because you have TOD. You can also use revenues coming from the state to do a TOD development. Working with our transit center down the block, that's why we would do it moving forward. But we have more opportunities to provide those resources to individuals that work and live in the downtown area now that don't live in the downtown area.
I understand that, and I'm a proponent of the 15-minute living area concept, right? A big proponent of that, right? And this will do this, right? This will do this, but now I'm getting for the first time that we're going to be the master developers.
That is the recommendation when we bring something forth, that will be the case. Because it will contain the vision of the council and the community. Having a developer to come in and do what they want means they're going to make the money off the back end of the community and not the community.
Okay.
And that is a fact. That's
Okay.
the way economics work.
So the EFID, are we going to do an EFID for this?
So at this point in time, there are a number of things going on that you all may not be aware of. There is an EFID that has been proposed through the county right now. So we're trying to figure out where that's at. That will take it away from you all, so you're aware.
Okay.
This would most likely be a CFD, a special district, so that the funding of the infrastructure, the roads, gutters, sewer systems could be paid for like most major infrastructure projects. And that is exempt from the SLA process. All those roads, gutters are exempt from the SLA process. So we would have to do that, yes.
So affordable housing, is that in your plan?
Yes, in a manner of speaking, as we move forward, we are currently working with Cosmont and Associates as an idea that we're pushing forth that they're going to look at discussing with the state to see if it will work. But yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Calvin?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm just going to be real frank right here. I'm a little bit disappointed at the amount of information that is coming to us without it coming to us prior to this time. It seems like you've mapped this all the way out, and you have not allowed the council to play a role in this. You're informing me of a whole lot of information here that I don't clearly see where you had direction to go and get, or definitely not to enter into agreements with anyone. And I think that it is also, as far as the community and the amount of money that we paid PlaceWorks, like where are they involved in this? Because what I'm seeing now is that we just have thrown away a lot of funding, and we don't have anything to stand on with that or to show for it with that. So, and just this, every time that we get, a new city manager, now I want to develop the downtown for sure, but the plans can't drastically change with administrations, and definitely not with coming before council to say, here is the plan, here's what I'm thinking, and then, and before you enter into contracts and agreements with folks. I'm a little bit perturbed right now, and I'm trying to understand, because yes, with having the issues that we did have with SLA, so we know that we have to have a certain amount of affordable housing when this property is sold. And I just want to be assured that that is part of what we are exactly looking at, that those numbers that we have to provide to the state of California, that we're doing that. So we're not doing anything again outside of the process, not following the process, and then we end up right where we are this very moment.
Mayor, Councilmember Callan, I'll be frank as well. This is called a study session for a reason. We're bringing forth information to you all to discuss and to consider. On this mall site, this is just an option to consider. What has been done before is not working. We have to look at it in a different manner. We do realize there are restrictions when it comes to the SLA process. We're not ignoring those restrictions. When it comes to PlaceWorks, I got to congratulate Mary, who's in the audience, I still think behind me. She has completed the housing element, which will be completed hopefully in the next month and finalized. Okay, there are a number of things that need to be done, but working, and I'll be totally frank with you again, doing this for 33 years, I've never heard of a general plan taking 10 years to complete and $10 million. And that is a number. We agree. And I will be honest with you. I would have done something a lot sooner, and that's why I'm here. I'm making sure that happens. Now, as far as the site, this is conceptual alone. There are no agreements on this site. This is an idea and a concept for council to consider if we bring anything moving forward. But recognizing that when you all did the original study, it didn't take into consideration the opportunity zone, which is federal tax purposes. It did not take into consideration transit-oriented development at all. It did not take into consideration those items that are exempt from the SLA process, which has to be considered.
I am definitely not disagreeing with anything that you have just stated. What I'm stating is that this is one conceptual site plan, so we only have one to choose from. That, what do we, is there another one?
Councilmember Calvin, this is just a concept.
But can you present us with more than one? Do you plan on presenting us with more than one?
This is just a concept. If we go to council for direction, which you cannot give us here, we will get the direction to produce more than one. But this is just an idea to letting you know what has been done before is not working and how we can make it work.
But we all agree with that. That's not the issue. And to address the issues that we had before with the last plans is where I would think that we would need to definitely start. And that was definitely with the SLA. That was definitely then with the environmentals and things not being provided and followed. So it's a lot of things. It is definitely a lot of things. And I'm trying to state that I don't want to move forward with something until we have finally addressed what it is that we need to. So, I mean, because I hope I'm not the only council member up here that is looking at one site plan. And typically, even when we chose the last developer, we had more than one site plans, even whether it was conceptual to choose from or even to discuss. And I'm saying here that this feels like we're only being offered one to take a look at, and all of the work, address the work that PlaceWorks, address that work. Address what the community came out and stated that they wanted to see. Address where that information is so that they're also available, aware of what we're doing with that information. A lot of people came out week after week and giving all of that information for it to dissipate is not quite fair.
Councilmember Calvin, previously you had asked, have we researched additional revenue sources, additional money that would be available to the city for development? On this one, we absolutely have here too as well. And that's why we're throwing in all these little components that were not considered in the original RFP that was issued and the original contracts. It was not, and that is a fact.
I did not disagree with that fact. Once again, I think that I've been very clear as to what it is that the council should be able to see and have privy to, sir, and the community as well.
Thank you. I have Councilmember Ibarra followed by Councilmember Reynoso.
Thank you for the presentation, staff. I think this is a little bit more streamlined. The fact that you have the different quadrants should be helpful with finding or setting out the RFPs to find people who are focused on either housing, retail, commercial, hotels. I appreciate it. I think I see where you're coming from, Mr. City Manager, because I know the last time we did an RFQ, we had two teams joining together, and they had different focuses on what their strengths of what they were building previously. And this is actually offering a broader, if this helps Councilmember Calvin, this is allowing for more than one developer to come in to develop this site, which is huge in size in itself. And I see here that, yes, we do have to go through HCD also to make sure that we are addressing the housing needs of the state. I don't think our city manager is going around it the wrong way. I commend the work that he's doing. This is a lot. So I can see this happening in steps. And the fact that, I was thinking of, why not have a downtown with some entertainment, also an aspect of entertainment? And we have the Orange Show, we have the baseball team, but we don't have an actual convention center right now. And that quadrant number 4, I think that's going to help even boost up that area and bringing in more people into our downtown. So I do appreciate it, and I see there's 2 quadrants that are going to address the housing needs for our city in itself. So I'd say give it an opportunity. We're here to provide our staff and city manager with any suggestions that we have. This is not a final, like you said, this is not final, but if you have any other suggestions besides what the community already has requested and wants to see in their downtown, I think this is the right move forward for our city. So thank you, staff, for your report.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Reynoso?
Yeah, no, I know that you understand what Councilwoman Calvin is getting at, and I agree with her. And I don't think it's on staff because I know that you put this together, and it's a great job. I think the bigger message here that we're trying to get across is that because there was so much community input, and I totally understand for time's sake, and I appreciate it. I'm not saying that I don't. But this should have been a presentation on, hey, San Bernardino, we are considering, because we've had behind closed doors or in staff meeting conversations about being the master developer. People have no idea what that process would look like if we are. And that's what should have been included in this.
So, Mayor, Councilmember Reynoso, I'll say this. Myself, I won't speak for staff, constantly wrestle with, do we notify the community before we notify the council, or do we notify the council before the community? So having a study session, this allows us to bring it to you all, bring it out in the public domain, and then we can go out to the community and get their feedback. But I don't want to blindside you all either. So it's kind of like, where do we start, you know?
We had been talking with Charles McNeely before you about being the master developer because it made more sense. I believe this council all agrees, like, we didn't want to flip it. Okay, regardless, I understand what you're saying, not trying to go back and forth, just wanted to say that.
Thank you. Any further comments? Mayor Pro Tem?
Well, I'm just going to kind of piggyback on that. I think that's what we're doing tonight. If our phones ring off the hook tomorrow with all the community that wanted to be engaged and could have been engaged, says, what are you people doing? You're crazy. We can't live with that at all. This is a starting point, and from my perspective, it is better than I've ever seen. We went through this process once before. We know how that worked. It didn't work out. I commend staff for going out on a limb, so to speak, and doing this and bringing it to us so that it can start the conversation and discuss it. It doesn't have to be 5 quadrants, right? It doesn't have to be 2 quadrants. If someone called tomorrow that says, hey, I didn't realize that property's here, I've got the wherewithal to do the whole thing, it could possibly change the whole thing. So nothing is set in stone. We're not voting on anything tonight, and you've got to start somewhere. So I for one, we had, when I think it was before I was even elected, which is back in about 2008 or 9, we were talking about this Carousel Mall, and we had charrettes, they call them. It's not spelled the same way as my name. But that's a public meeting where the community gets involved, and they go around and they go to various areas and they put up their ideas. And we went through all that. That was 15 years ago. And here we are still now, and we finally, in the last year, have really shown some progress by getting the thing raised and down and demolished. So I just would caution everybody to kind of take a step back and not get too excited that this is set in stone and that we can't tweak it, change it, and if the right developer came along, throw the whole thing out and say, take it. I mean, if it makes sense, it's got to make sense. And to me, this is certainly a very good start and something that we can kind of springboard off of.
And Mayor, Councilmember Shedd, I'll add, the reason why we started looking at quadrants is, yes, we're still working through the environmental process on 2 of those areas. So it's not like we can just say, hey, here's the site, because if there's contamination, the city's accountable. The city's gonna have to remediate. So doing the quadrant gives us a little more flexibility.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. I don't see any further comments by my colleagues. I do want to commend you and staff for bringing this forward. Again, this is a discussion. This is starting a discussion about Carousel Mall site. We're not dismissing the community's engagement or input. This is, again, the beginning stages. And so for us to have a dialogue and for us to really share our concerns, it's important for staff to be able to take these feedback from all the council members and be able to start, coming back with more direction, more progress. So again, to the public, this is a starting point, and we're very excited for progress and results as we move along. I think that's it for item number 3. Moving on to item number 4. Code of Ethics and Conduct Policy. Can we begin with staff's presentation?
Yes, Corey Hodges, Senior Management Analyst in the Office of the City Manager, will be leading the presentation.
Thank you, and good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council. I'm Corey Hodges. I'm the Senior Management Analyst. Oh, you can't hear me? I'm sorry. I'm the Senior Management Analyst in the Office of the City Manager, and I've prepared a short PowerPoint presentation just to show you some conceptual ideas for a code of ethics and conduct policy. So first slide. I'll briefly discuss and highlight some of the governing documents for the city, and then I'll talk about how the ethics policy fits into some of those governing documents. I'll walk you through some of the policy goals. I'll give you some idea of some of the conceptual code of ethics core values, and then I'll talk about some next steps. So first, our city has a number of governing documents. They help us kind of tell everybody who we are, what we like to accomplish, how we'd like to accomplish that. Some of those examples are resolutions, ordinances, plans like the Downtown Development Plan, the Development Code, the General Plan, but at the top there are these core documents, the City Charter, the Municipal Code, our fiscal budget, our strategic targets and goals, and our vision for the future. So what we would like to add is the Code of Ethics and Conduct to those primary governing documents for our city. Very quickly, the policy goal here is to establish a clear and affirmative set of professional and ethical standards for the city to enhance the quality of service and to instill confidence in local government from our residents, our community stakeholders, our business partners, and our outside entities. Conceptually, these are some of the core values that we've come up with, and I'll read them here off the screen. As a representative of the city of San Bernardino, I will be ethical, professional, service-oriented, fiscally responsible, organized, communicative, collaborative, innovative, fair and accountable, and respectful. And just to remind you that we're not making any decisions tonight, we're just presenting this conceptual framework of this ethics policy. And then the next steps is we would incorporate feedback from the mayor and city council, from the city manager, from the department directors. We would come back to you with a second version of a formal policy for you all to discuss, give us more feedback if necessary, and then eventually adopt something, and then we would distribute that policy. So that short presentation, and I have some I'm open for some questions.
Mayor, Council, if I may. The reasoning behind this is much of this is already contained within the council code, with the municipal code, within the charter itself. However, what we're finding is that when we're dealing with national or state investors back into the community, they're asking us, well, we watched your videos, there's some issues on your council, or how are we going to be treated when we get up there? And we're trying to reinsure them. And they want to make sure that as we are growing up, that we are making sure that as they come, they're going to be respected and they're going to be treated fairly. Whether you guys agree or not with each other or them, just that's what they want to make sure, that there's mutual respect across the table. And that's why we brought this forward.
Thank you so much for that. Let's see, Councilmember Alexander?
Yeah, just one quick question. Don't we have a code of ethics for the city? Tests? Didn't we approve that already?
I can take that. The council did
HR
adopt.
director?
So the council has items that are contained within the code, the municipal code itself.
No,
However,
this was before you got here. Didn't we do this already?
A code of ethics? No, there wasn't one that was established. As mentioned, we do have several, where it is referenced, but as our city manager had stated, this would be specific to what he described.
Council didn't approve a code of ethics for all city employees to take?
Councilmember Alexander, if I may, there is a requirement for staff training, and I believe that the council had approved an item to extend a revised version of that ethics training for 1 hour in duration to extend to all employees that weren't already covered under the statutory requirement.
To all employees?
Yes, that is correct.
However, Councilmember Alexander, the mayor and council are not employees.
Let me jump in on this. As council knows, because you've sat through the videos and sat through the trainings, you are subject to AB 1234 trainings, which is 2 hours of mandatory ethics trainings as council members every 2 years. That is correct. You do have a code of conduct that is adopted in accordance with the charter that's codified in your municipal code. However, and you did as a council recently approve, as Ms. Evelyn pointed out, expanding that training that's mandatory for department heads, directors, council, to all staff in a sort of reduced format, a reduced hour format. What you don't have, and what staff is proposing today, is a code of ethics to govern general behavior. Beyond the code of conduct, something more aspirational, something more lofty, and I'll let staff speak to that. But I just want to explain to you what you've done so far and where that gap is. Hopefully that helps understand why staff's proposing this.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So just to clarify, this is going to apply to everybody, even our staff, correct?
Mayor, Councilmember Ibarra, this is for the mayor and the council at this point in time. So as we bring this forward, it would be the mayor and council adopted upon the mayor and council themselves. At a later date, we will look at proposing this upon the employees. That is different because you also have MOUs and agreements with some of the unions that we need to also consider in how we move forward with this item.
Okay, yeah, because I would like to see something like this just citywide. That way, even our community members that interact with our regular staff out there, they are also treated with respect and dignity while being talked to by our staff. So, and you know, every 2 years I'm taking that code of ethics and ethics training and harassment. So it'd be nice if everybody does it too. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Calvin, did you have something more you wanted to say? No. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. Turn it on and then turn it right off. That really brings us to the end of the open session meeting. Does anyone have any further comments from the dais or from staff at this point? Then I will move to close this meeting, and we will move into closed session. And we will return if we have a reportable item.
We're going to convene into closed session, and the meeting will be adjourned.
We're going to adjourn and convene into closed session. No?
We're going into closed session.
We're going into closed session.
We'll adjourn the meeting afterwards.
We're going to adjourn this meeting. Okay, all right. Thank you.
City Attorney, do you have anything to report?
We have no formal reportable action, Mayor. Council did meet in closed session to give direction to real property negotiators, but no formal reportable action. Thank you.
Thank you. The meeting is now adjourned at 6:26 p.m. The next regular meeting of the Mayor and City Council and the Mayor and City Council acting as the successor agency to the Redevelopment Agency will be held on Wednesday, February 21st, 2024 at the Feldheim Central Library located at 555 West 6th Street, San Bernardino, California, 92401. Closed session will begin at 5:30. Open session will begin at 7.